Hello everybody, we're back again, and this week we are going to be finding some fantastic fantasy figures amongst historical giants in our Indie of the Week, checking out the Deadzone containment protocols for 3rd edition, and picking our favourite parts of the mini extravaganza of Atomic Mass Games. Not only that, but one lucky subscriber will pick up a copy of Kill Team Octarius from store.ontabletop.com. To be in with a chance to win, you just need to be a subscriber to the channel, but if you can, give us a thumbs up, share it around with your friends, and hit that bell button to be notified whenever we release something new onto the channel. But right now, sit back and relax as we take a tour through the gaming world, because your weekend starts now. Hello everybody, we're back once again for another weekend's worth of fun-filled news and adventure for all your tabletop gaming goodness. I'm joined this week by Justin and Ben.
Hello.
With big gaps on the side screen. It's so weird.
It's all right, I can just embiggen Ben.
That's all right.
Just make me twice as big, yes. Yeah.
No,
just been slowly scaring off everybody else around us. Yeah, it's one way of going for it. Don't worry, they will be back.
Yeah,
it's
will
not
be.
This week. Yeah. They're having a rest.
Yes,
so we don't get one.
Yeah, they're on a vacation.
Before we kick off with the show and the most important part of the week, we have a couple of updates. Update the first is a video has gone out this week of Sigmar vodka and a interview I had with Liam about Degenesis. I was going to say Degenesis about Liam. That would be weird and different.
And suddenly the role-playing game plays you.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it already, we featured them as an Indie of the Week months ago. And then I got a chance to sit down with Marco and Erwin to talk about the business side of Sigmar vodka. This, unfortunately, doesn't contain any interesting nuggets about business acumen and practices, and is unfortunately just about the books, the story, the world, and all that sort of thing. So,
yes, and showing off just how pretty the actual physical books are.
Yeah. So if you're interested in seeing more about Degenesis, there's 42 minutes worth of goodness there, where you can see a bit about what's going on, what's happening. And I believe Liam will be playing a game with us when he gets back from Germany at some point. So we should have one on camera as well.
Yeah.
Dibs on playing a judge.
If you missed out on the first interview, by the way, that is linked down there as well, so you can go and check that out. And also, there's a link in there for you to go and check out the Indie of the Week section, where Jerry delved lovingly into their range of wonderful books and digital content.
I was like Scrooge McDuck in his money bin.
yes, except it was a digital dive into all of the things they have on their website, from timelines to all the main rulebooks being free to download as PDF, or Jerry just going, no, I don't want PDF. I don't want digital. I want physical.
I gotta say, it was very nice.
Hot garbage.
Yeah.
You can read stuff on a screen. It's terrible. Get a book. Get one of these books. Oh, that's
I have to admit, my mum got me a Kindle paperback recently, and I have kind of been liking it for novels. You know, for the longest time, I was just like, no, can't read off a tablet. Actually, it's kind of okay.
You don't get the book smell.
Yeah, I know.
So weird.
I know.
You need to get a spray that you can put onto a tablet that you can go, new book smell.
So it's like old school TV, the scratch and sniff cards. Just oh yes,
it's one for Yankee Candles to come up with. Then
very true. Yeah.
New book smell. Anyway, that's not the only thing we've been looking at this week. Ben, you've been taking a look at Quarantine.
Yeah. So Quarantine 37 is the first big expansion, proper big book expansion for Stargrave, which is now available for you to go and pick up from the folks over at Osprey Games. We sort of went through and did like a little bit of a first impressions on the book. It's really good. Who would have thought it? From Joseph McCullough. It's got some really awesome campaigns in there for you to follow through with your friends. Two sort of like big narrative ones that kind of flow into each other. One of them deals with like plague zombies, and the other one deals with big space bugs, which is very nice. So you can get your alien on, which is very cool. And then there's also a separate campaign in there which is all about solo play as well. So you can go in and dive in and give that a go. Also comes with a couple of things in there, sort of like tweak it to be cooperative as well, if you prefer to approach it from that view, which is pretty nice. But yeah, so first impressions are up there, sort of looking through the book and talking about all the things that I enjoyed about it. Go and check it out. Get like a little bit of a sneak preview of it before perhaps going to pick it up from Osprey Games yourself. Very awesome stuff. And it paves the way for a lot more excellent additions to Stargrave in the future from McCullough. So
yeah. See, I'm not sure how their campaign in the book plays out for the zombies, but I kind of want to just play a group of prisoners doing a breakout, trying not to get infected.
You could easily do that. There are some really fun things in there, just to sort of like go back. So there's totally rules in there for being infected, and your opponent can like roll a dice to make you infected in future games, which is very cool. And then you become a zombie going around and infect everyone else. And there's also a new set of soldiers in the book called the Ravaged. So they're people that have survived the plague, the infection. And so have now become sort of like wasted versions of themselves, and you can use them as part of your crew. So you could put together like an almost like ghoulish force led by a captain who's probably either very nice or has realized they work for a lot less money than other people. So
I see. I just imagine Jerry landing on a planet, just opening the cargo bay doors, going, "Well, my work here is done."
Why not?
And then push you off a tower.
Push them off. If they didn't want me to push them off, why would they be standing near the edge of something high? But yeah, it's a great little book. I think anybody who's got Stargrave is almost undoubtedly going to pick that up anyway.
Very much so,
because of the new soldiers and bits and bobs in it. Even if you don't plan on playing through, how weird would that be if you don't plan on playing through a zombie/bug infestation? I also like the fact that he has set it up that it can be either or, so it's quite good. My Sedition War models may finally make it onto the tabletop.
Yeah.
There's an old callback.
Wow. I tell you what, nobody expected them.
No. Much like the Spanish Inquisition.
Oh. But anyway, so that's two of many updates that are kicking around on tabletop at the moment. If you fancy going over there and having a browse around, I'm sure you'll find umpteen other things that you may not have come across. There's a big Death Stomper with smoking lights somewhere.
It's very fancy.
Public this week. And then John has been painting Fenrir from Mythic Battles Ragnarok.
So yeah, plenty to be looking at. But for now, we're going to move on and take a look at our Indie of the Week.
Ooh.
And this week, we're going big, but small. Big, but historical, but fantasy, but small, but big. Because I've decided to force First Legion upon the world. And I first discovered them when I was looking for models for statues.
Okay, right, yeah.
Because the majority of their stuff is large-scale historic. So 60 mil, 60, 75, 40 mil. I think there was even 90s at one stage of a whole host of things. But then they started doing fantasy figures. And fantasy figures in 28 mil for the purposes of people who play role-playing games. Sorry, I just sicked up in my mouth a little. With miniatures. However, the nice thing is they are an absolute dream as far as 28 mil character models go. B, they're made in resin, so every bit of detail that you see on the renders is captured. And let's just get stuck into them, to be brutally honest.
I really want to see
this to be said.
Yeah.
So we start off with our characters themselves. So you have various character models: paladins, magicians, barbarians, necromancers, and they range from the sort of the classic tropes. So if you are a Pathfinder or a D&D fan, you'll be able to see all of these. So as you can see here, we have a female warrior with a spear.
Very cool.
Rocking a moderate set of armor in a very fantasy way.
I don't know. There are still some like vital areas left unarmored. but it's a stylistic choice.
Think how much lighter is the male armor.
Yeah.
And by male, I mean gender, not rings.
Both would be heavier.
They have to wear so much more plate to get the same armor class in RPGs. Go figure. Speak of the devil. We'll have a look at this one here. So this is
wow,
Blessed Paladin, allegedly. Discuss. And again,
I like that you've got the 2 head options there. That's really cool.
See, I always like a cowled head for a paladin.
Yeah.
He feels more paladin-y, and this fella down here feels more like a dark paladin.
Yeah. Some kind of black knight.
Yeah.
I like the idea that you could almost do that as kind of like a level up thing as well. I mean, I know like a helmet doesn't necessarily mean that you've leveled up to level 10 or something, but you could have him with the helmet, the hood to begin with, and then sort of do it either magnetized or just have 2 figures and just repaint it, or, then add the head on later to sort of get the helmet into the mix. So
here's a thought. If you're using him and you want to have more than one of his type in something like, say, Frostgrave, if you want to use him as like the leader and the apprentice, the leader can have the helmet on, the apprentice is going bareheaded. Clearly, the apprentice will, survive better because he's showing his face.
There's another head option. Let me see if I can.
Is there?
If I can make this work.
Very nice. He
looks a bit like Slain.
He does a little bit. I really like that.
One massive axe. Yeah.
It's got kind of like classic fantasy, but then some sort of like bolted on slightly more epic-y stuff, especially with kind of like the rivets on bits and pieces of the arm and things. It's very nice.
We see even the sword's a bit more historical. It's a true Zweihander. So the German 2-handed greatsword.
So you can beat people to death with it, with the side.
So you see, you don't even swing at them. You just let it fall on top of their head.
That's one way of doing it. Or you can hit them upside the head with the cross guard like a pick.
Yeah, hand and a half sword kind of thing. Very cool.
Sweet to the beat. Apart from our paladin, what else have I opened here? I've opened the massive barbarian.
Of course.
Barbarian.
Screaming Leroy Jenkins into the middle of the dungeon.
Yeah, I mean, that is just a screaming barbarian. Exactly what you would expect to see when somebody goes, I want to play a barbarian on the tabletop.
Yes.
You were very
less than the fantasy warrior.
Yeah, you were very on point when you were saying that it kind of looks at a lot of those sort of like classic tropes of fantasy, because that is that kind of iconic Arnold Schwarzenegger style barbarian.
Yeah.
A lot of people modeled things off in the artwork and stuff, isn't it? So,
you just imagine him standing there going, and if you do not listen, to hell with you.
Yeah.
And then he punches a camel.
I can see him on the front cover of any of the Conan books.
Exactly.
Going back nuts at all the enemies around him.
Oh, yeah.
With that huge wolf-headed
Some dragon-headed or wolf-headed?
No, it's wolf-headed. It's got to be magical. It's too ornate to be just normal.
Well, clearly, he's been through a dungeon or two already.
Yeah.
And everybody's favorite, a thief in a shadow. Little rogue. And that the stitched nature, they do feel like they are just, poor.
It almost looks like sackcloth.
Yeah.
Just with the texturing they did on it, which is very, very nice.
I like the set of thieves tools you've got attached to the belt as well.
Yeah.
So, because you don't normally see that attached to things. And then he's got the crowbar when the lock just doesn't open.
And just a tiny shiv.
If the lock doesn't open, or if the baker wakes up in the middle of the night and you're robbing his place, either way, it has a job to do, and he will do that job. I like how he's got
he's got like a little mask on.
Yeah. Masking his face so you don't know who's killed you up.
Yes, he is up to some shitty stuff.
Yeah. Also has that sort of feel that it's like his cowl and cape and clothing, the stuff he goes thieving in has been homemade. He didn't want anybody tracing him. I don't want to go and buy my stuff from the local tailor because people will go, has anybody bought a load of black silk recently?
Mr. McCabe, why have you been buying so many black clothes recently? Reasons.
Well, I certainly haven't been beating a baker around the head with none of that. But yeah, it's bingo back. Where are we? Oh, so far back to go. You thought I'd opened so many already. Well, me, clearly.
Yeah.
But apart from that, we also have some
female
characters as well.
The goblin thief as well.
Yeah. Can we get the female warrior with 3 weapon options and head variants? Because that's nice.
Making me open things.
Yes,
like a good wizard in a big hat.
Abscessus the wizard. Yeah. He has got a big hat, hasn't he?
Yes.
I wonder who he's based on. Clearly, the Grey Wizard from Talisman is the correct answer.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although he is rocking some form of dwarven sword, just from the style of it.
I like that he was gifted that. He definitely didn't steal it.
No. Clearly, he wasn't walking through going, "Oh, that's nice. I'll have that."
Doesn't need to steal things. People just give him stuff. He just walks into town and goes, you got
I'm a wizard.
And then they go, "Why would we give you stuff? You're speaking a lot of shit for somebody whose house is so flat." Good point, Abacus the wizard. Please have this fine sword. Thank you, peasant. Bye. Strangest little wizard I would be. Gandalf would not have been taking hobbits with him. He just got one of the eagles to pick Frodo up and just drop him straight in there. Bam. Done. Dusted. None of this walking nonsense. Anyway. Which we look. Who else have we got? Goblin Thief.
That's nice.
That's really nice. Yeah.
Female Goblin Thief.
What's really cool about it, I think especially over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of people looking towards playing a lot more kind of like traditionally monster classes as player classes. So having things like this is really cool because you can kind of take them away from just being conniving little evil Egypts and instead turn them into player characters, which is really nice.
Well, see, we may have recently adopted / kidnapped a goblin who joined our party who's an NPC.
Of course you did.
Do you make them walk in front of you to check for traps on the end of a rope?
Yes. Well, actually, you see, he's very, very focused with food. So that's how we're keeping him in line. So it's just, it's a piece of rotten meat on a stick held out in front, gets him going.
Wow.
Just you use it like a cat toy.
I like the nice little touches here. So she's clearly an adept thief because she has a whole bunch of rings on one of her fingers, or all of her fingers there. Where she's been like, well, I've pilfered that, I'll keep it.
Oh, look, that happens to fit. We're not selling that.
I like the idea that they thieve just because they like to thieve and they're not actually making any money out of it. Keep everything they thieve. Yeah. So I don't need to buy stuff. I don't need to sell stuff because I don't need to buy stuff because I just steal everything I need. Bam.
What did you get from that man's house? A box of buttons.
Why were you stealing from the butcher? I'm hungry.
Oh, wow.
Robin Gunfighter. Wow.
That's an odd one.
It's like Quigley Down Under.
You just imagine him sounding like Mick Dundee.
You call that a knife?
It's an impressive set of mutton chops on him as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
I like. It's almost got kind of like a Red Dead kind of thing going on as well. Yeah,
that's probably exactly where it's come from.
Especially with the bandolier and the mutton chops and the hat. Yeah, but very nice. Very cool.
I like that. I imagine that's not a 6-shooter. I imagine that's just a flintlock pistol type thing.
That's how I'd rule it. Yeah. And he'd be like a goblin explorer kind of thing. Yeah.
I see.
And it doesn't belong in a museum. It belongs in his house. That's the way you view things.
Very much so.
It's just like, that's a nice bank you've got there. Do you want to give me the money out of it?
And here you want to see this.
Yeah, I'm curious about this one. Because that's a very, very nicely designed female warrior.
So that's her standard.
Got like a nice, cool fighting stance to it.
Then, if I can...
Yes, do clever thingy things.
Ooh, find the render.
Uh-huh.
Oh, does that make the last one disappear completely? That's terrible.
I like that. That's a really beautiful character.
I like the fighting stance.
That's top knotty.
As if she's kind of like knocked the sword down away from someone. She's going for like a lunge, which is pretty cool. So yeah, because that's the thing with a lot of the sort of like with D&D style fantasy miniatures, you kind of want them to be more often than not in fighting poses, because when you're using them on the table, they're often used in the combat scenarios rather than just the exploratory stuff. So you want them to look like they're actually, in the midst of a battle with a goblin or an orc or something. So
well, it's that or they're having some very serious negotiations with the quest giver.
So front, back.
Oh, cool.
The armored capelet is really nice.
I like the studded kilt.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah,
and those are your variations.
So
double daggers
or like a bulge kind of thing.
Yeah.
If I was getting one, this is it.
It's a very cool character.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
I've been reading so much Wheel of Time at the moment. All I can see is Matt's You used to call it the Asher and Die. Quarter staff with a big.
I wonder what
blade
made
at the
you
top.
read a lot of Wheel of Time, Jerry.
I've no idea.
Dun dun dun.
No idea. Anyway, moving
Those
away
are
from the
fabulous.
characters.
Yes, because there's quite a lot of 28mm stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So where do you want to go next?
I'm curious about the ogres and trolls.
Well, if we open ogres, trolls,
Hmm.
dwarves, and elves, I think would be a cool one.
Yeah.
So
Although their orcs kind of look badass too.
basically, what we're saying is everything.
Yeah, just like the classic fantasy races.
Well, we'll start with the ogres.
Wow.
So this you have a few plus a dragon
Dragons.
There be dragons.
snuck in at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
$70 for a
Wow.
resident dragon is not bad.
Ralph Dar Hill Crusher. What a cool name for a dragon.
Well, they also have giants.
Yeah,
Frost
Frost
Hill.
Hill.
That's a really nice looking stone giant.
Oh,
Wow.
I'm digging the swamp troll though, with all the boils on his belly.
Mm.
Oh, so
Oily
it's
bellied swamp troll.
not to be confused with the Serengeti swamp donkey, which is something different.
Something else entirely. Yeah.
So-
I'm always worried whenever Jerry says something and I don't know what it is, because it's just like, do I need to hide that? Do I not? Do I let it in?
Oh, no, no, let
Just
it
like,
in, let it in.
ah.
Oh,
Oh, I do like a good dragon.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
nice. And again, in like a fighting pose,
Yeah.
which is cool. So it's about to like bring its claw down on someone and crush them.
No, it's standing there going, no, heroes, don't go in that cave. There's no treasure in there, I swear.
trying to see if it gives you scale appropriate things anywhere. Because I'm trying to work out just how big it is.
Yeah.
I would love to.
Invigorate.
I'm sure it's
Yeah.
pretty hefty.
I would hypothesize that a hero was probably about up to the top of its foot, perhaps.
Well, there are little skulls at
Yeah.
the feet.
Yeah, to give you an
Yeah.
idea of the scale. But
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, your hero is going to be up to just about the top of its ankle.
Oh, but that one as well.
Good wingspan.
okay. Yeah. And lots of detail built into the wings and the back as well. So when you're doing your washes and dry brushes and things, your paintbrush is going to pick that up, which is
Yeah.
cool.
It's going to come up an absolute treat. Although, what would you do? Red dragon, black dragon, green dragon?
Ooh. With it being called Hill Crusher, I'd do it as a green dragon, I think.
All
Good
the
call.
acid damage.
Yeah.
Good call.
Hmm.
So we'll look at our.
They
That
have
is
went
very
to,
nice.
Yeah, they have went to town on the details on this stuff. That is
They
very
see-
impressive.
Because these guys do like a fair range of different bits and pieces, but I think this would be quite nice for sort of mixing into games like Kings of War or Oathmark.
Oh, God.
I think these would be like perfect for that, because you get these as kind of like a centerpiece figure or something, and
Yeah.
use those to sort of differentiate it from all the other people that have got like the plastic giants and that kind of thing out there.
Mm.
That'd be nice. So
I mean, definitely, if you're doing any game that's just like miniatures agnostic and is just going to let you throw in whatever you like, this is definitely somewhere to come and check
very
out.
much so. Yeah.
You know, and even if you want to do like scenarios like your party is going giant hunting, you know, just playing role-playing games. You okay, Jerry?
Yeah. Don't mind me.
Just looking at all the pretties. This looks awesome. What is he holding?
He's chomped like a big fish.
Some kind of an eel, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a nice touch. I like it whenever they do small eclectic things to a sculpt like that. He's also scratching his ass.
Well, it's because
Got
the
an
hero,
itch.
it's because the heroes have literally just interrupted him while he's having lunch, and
How
then they
rude.
brutally murder him and steal all his gold. And all he was doing was sitting there having some food. So
Yeah, you know, Murder Hobo Inc.
yeah,
That's what they're all about.
that's nice.
He
though.
is lovely,
Very cool.
though, yeah.
Yeah, and I like the way his armor blends into his body.
Mhm. It's got a very natural feel to it, which is cool. So,
Mhm.
yeah, and kind of like he's stolen lots of pieces of his accessories and things from boats and other things that have been sort of dragged down into the murk. Oh, so he's 74 millimeters tall.
So that gives us an idea if the trolls are 74
Okay.
mil.
Yeah,
You can imagine the dragons even. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be.
Wow.
Yeah.
As you say in France.
I'm very impressed.
That is really nice. Yeah.
And then an ogre who looks like he's part walrus.
Very much so.
Like that is an impressive tash.
Yeah, he's got the whiskers for sure. Slightly like leaning more into the kind of the hunter look and the aesthetic from Warhammer as well there, which is nice. So you could use that as kind of like a stand-in for something like Ninth Age or something as well, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. And that says 60 millimeters tall for that one. So
Yeah. Ogres are some big boys.
Mm-hmm.
Just seeing what he has around his back.
Mm.
Oh. Open that.
I like that we have these mystery moments where Jerry's opening some surprise.
It's because every time I open a new image, it closes the window that allows me to open the new images. So I have to keep opening and closing it, opening and closing. It's
we see.
Beautifully laid out. So front.
I mean, yeah, very cool.
Bottom.
Awesome. I love the skull on the back.
Yeah, it's very Death Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the resin version, almost 70 mil tall. That again, that's fairly chunky.
Yeah.
Even for an ogre.
What's quite nice as well, especially when you start to see a lot more of these kind of finished resin versions of the miniatures, because obviously when you paint something, you can kind of hide mistakes that come through with the sculpt.
Mm-hmm.
But I like seeing the bare resins because it means that they actually do look like the renders.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that you often get as like a complaint from people is that, it's not, is it going to look like that when I actually get it?
Yeah. The render looks fantastic, but the final quality of the cast or the build isn't there.
Yeah. And it's seeing even some of the more subtle details, like the way the cloth is stretched over his gut and the folds that are in it. Feels very, very natural.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very nice. Very well done.
Mm-hmm. It's moving away from big things, I suppose. We'll have a look at some tiny peoples. There is much more in there.
There is a lot on this website.
Look at that Bull Smasher. Well, you won't get to see any more of them. Closing that, moving away.
Wow.
This will be here all day.
Yeah.
And again, dwarves, smaller, limited. What is that?
Shabazz the Dwarven Bolt Gunner. He's fully armored to the nines, big beard and a big gun. That's exactly what you need.
Yeah, it's like a swivel gun.
Yeah.
It's a wheel lock as well. You don't get many of those in fantasy. Too difficult to make for most people. But I like the fact that it is still a relatively realistic way of firing multiple times.
It's a contraption.
It's a contraption that could have, if anybody had decided to hook up a steam engine to a wheel lock, that it's viable. Madness, but viable.
I mean, I have seen some very crazy weapons down in history, so this does not look outside the realms of possibility.
Very true.
Whenever you had America making bat bombs. No, I kid you not. They attached bombs to bats and just dropped them. It was all well and good until they escaped.
Well.
Oh, wow.
They didn't escape. They immediately returned to the place they'd been deployed from because it was shaded and they'd let them go during the day. I've
just tweaked that's called a bolt gun because it fires bolts. It's just a big ass crossbow style thing, which is cool.
Yeah. Nice. So it's basically like a mini gun for a crossbow.
That's how you kill goblins.
Put it to you, that's how you kill anybody.
Yeah.
You just line them up in front of you.
Malachi Mackinson would be proud. So.
He would be. Where else do we want to go? There's Dwarven Assassins.
Let's look at the Dwarven Assassin, then we'll move on to the Elves, I think, because there's a lot to get through. So.
There's one more I would request.
Yes.
The Dwarven Huntress down the bottom.
The Huntress.
That is nice.
Because it's always nice to see the interpretation of the male and the female from a fantasy race.
Again, lovely details on that.
Nice. But he does look like he was possibly in the Dwarven military and it just went, I've done my basic training, I'm out.
I see him as some kind of like pathfinder. So like he heads ahead of the army and sort of checks out for things and kills stuff. And I bet that he doesn't live in the mountain. I bet he lives outside it all the time.
He's just missing a crossbow.
Yes.
Yeah. If he had a little crossbow as well, he'd be
I like
right up Main Street.
Yeah, the runic inscriptions on the daggers is really cool. Yeah.
And I love
he's kind of like won those won those as treasures or earned them
or
from his campaigns. Or nicked them. Could have also.
Although I do love the little trinkets that he has sculpted into his beard there. It's very lovely.
Yeah.
Very nice. Good way of doing it.
I've always said dwarves are made all the better by having fantastic beards, and that is a fantastic beard.
Fantastic beards and where to find them.
Yeah.
No. Is that not what it's called now? So close.
Yeah.
That's a bit different.
Yeah, for a female dwarf. I mean, it's something in fantasy novels and stuff, they'll try and describe them, but it's always nice to see them in miniature.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rocking headband.
Yeah, it's almost Native American styled.
She reminds me of Susie Quattro.
That's it, Jerry.
What a reference.
All my references are for the kids in the audience. What can I say? Now everybody's going to have Can the Can stuck in their head. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's very native sort of animal skins. And
So quite a different take on what you would normally imagine, which I like.
We have elves.
We do have elves, but you can get cream for it.
Bloody knife ears.
Where are we? Oh,
I've started to really like elves over the last couple of years. I've already started to enjoy elves, specifically Lord of the Rings elves, because Glorfindel is an absolute badass. So it's hard not to like him. As agile in their pose as you would imagine when it comes to elves, just kind of showcase that. But I like that they kind of done them as you've got that sort of haughty look and feel to them. Especially in like the facial expressions, but also that kind of thing of, oh no, he's haughty for a reason because he will kick your ass.
No, it's because
he's been training for 500 years. Well, he is immortal, but
I'm sure we can sort that. Type of things does he model? I think he's a hand model. See that.
I mean, there is a really nice sense of movement to the miniature.
Yeah.
It's very Troy.
Yeah.
Like Achilles fighting Hector.
Yeah.
I like that it's a weird, interesting choice with the shield as well, because it's not oversized. So it's more buckler than it is shield, which is interesting.
Like something like that they can move and make use of. Yeah. I like that.
Ooh.
That's quite
taking their cues from the Games Workshop book of posing. Yeah.
I like the fact that they sculpted it with the arrow included, because the number of times I see miniatures, they're drawn back to shoot a bow and arrow and there's no arrow, and it's just like...
Just need to, tie the bowstring on now. That's the next step.
Jerry has a jerry can for that.
But it's resin. I wouldn't use stretch sprue. I'd use copper wire. But yeah, that is
nice.
Nice. And
Scormias, the Elven Warrior.
Yeah, this card you imagine would have a very flowing fighting stance and style.
I wonder if there's a better picture of his face, because he looks like he's wearing quite
He's got like a
helmet,
like a very almost evil-looking mask, which is interesting.
Oh, you have no idea how right you are.
Does it look demonic? It does look a little demonic.
It does.
Yeah. Maybe he's...
None of them are wearing full plate, though. So there's an awful lot of cloth areas. Even the first warrior, it's like a small amount of breastplate, shoulder, arm, and greaves, and then a codling guard, because that's important. But then upper thighs, upper arms, they're all unarmored. Sort of gives that idea of speed and freedom of movement. The way they're textures as well, the arm pieces, looks like they could be painted as kind of like bone or wood, which is quite nice. You can see it on this front greave quite
striations and stuff.
Yeah, I do kind of disagree with the sword designs. It feels a little more orcish to me.
Really?
Yeah, I think those look like
I could be completely wrong.
Yeah. If you go back and watch the Battle of Helm's Deep, I think every elf had that sword.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Does anyone else get like a very Scorn look from War Machine? You could kind of imagine them being on the front lines of a Scorn army, which is
a little bit, but not really.
Paint the armor red.
all I'm thinking of is like fantasy Harlequin.
Yeah,
like the big grinning face.
Yeah,
very nice though. Very cool.
Yeah. Lovely stuff.
Right.
I think you should pick one, Jerry, because you haven't picked one yet. From the cavalcade of 28 mil. So
let's dump all of that. What do we got down here? Skelly Bobs and Undead, villagers and accessories.
Oh, hello, yes.
Very nice.
I'll have a look in here, because I know there's quite a lot of nice stuff in here. Start with our fish cellar and their tent.
Very good stuff for role-playing games and skirmish games alike. So sort of like adding some narrative, which is cool.
Or just populating your table with incidental characters.
Look, that thief is nipped in here. You're not supposed to be in here, thief. Get back in the character section where you should be.
You're meant to be a hero.
Clearly, he's in here thinking he's going to sneak about and rob everybody.
Well, yeah, it clearly is.
You feel this stealth roll.
So the fish seller and their tent.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, he's even got a big bucket.
That's the fish that the swamp trolls eaten, clearly.
Yeah, he's just like,
Rampage.
slaps fish, gets picked up by swamp ogre, and gets eaten.
Yeah.
I'll harden him. There's
the poor old beggar.
Oh,
so
wow.
You say beggar, I say veteran of the last war.
They're true. Yeah. Oh, look, Jerry, they've done you in miniature again.
Everybody does me in miniature. I'm very miniature-esque.
Here is
like
a nice
statuesque, but less so.
Here's a very nice detail. Look in his hand.
Yes.
He's got a coin in it. Yeah. That's a really nice little detail to have in there. That's what I'm seeing with these guys more than anything, is they're just doing all those super nice little details that you wouldn't normally see in a miniature, but they really just make them better.
In case you want the Lloyd shot of what I look like with only one leg. I like stork margarine because I've only got one leg. Again, one for the kids.
Oh, dear.
You have to have a look at the guards.
Okay, that's nice to have.
Town guards and weapon rack.
Yeah.
Why would that be? They're really nice town guards as well.
Yeah, I mean, the guy on the right, you can actually see he's not wearing a breastplate because he's got the beer gut.
Yep.
So you've got one guy who could afford to buy his armor from the state, and the other guy who couldn't and was just given the halberd.
or captain and
captain
regular soldier.
Yeah, very true.
When you can afford to get paid enough, you too can own armor like me. Up until then, you stand by the door in the pissing rain and you just stop everybody who comes in, especially that guy who looks like a thief with a sack. Oh, he stabbed you.
Just like, oh, whoops, that you should have wore your red shirt.
But Captain, can't I use the breastplate that's sitting there by the weapon rack? No, you may not. Your job is to guard the armor, not wear the armor. I don't want to shop soil the armor.
Yes. And, he's probably sitting there looking, but if I wore the armor, I'd have a six-pack.
Any other images? Just a Lloydie from behind.
Aye. Again, nice to have someone who's in the stocks.
With rotten fruit.
Exactly.
Stocks.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, is those types of details.
It's certainly a look.
Mm-hmm. The fact that the rotten fruit's even running off the side of your base.
Yep.
I like it.
That's how you know the magic's happening. Anybody come at him from behind? Oh, no.
Wonder what he's in the stocks for. Oh, dude.
I imagine based on the hole in his bottom of his moccasin there that he's been begging without a license, or maybe he was caught stealing.
Yeah. Although also look at his back; he's got the whip marks in there.
I'm looking at one crack certainly.
He's been done for indecent exposure, and it keeps on giving. So.
I can't stop it from happening.
Yeah, they're an interesting set of people.
Fabulous stuff.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, there's 10 children riding a pig. That's cool.
Well, all right then. We will. We weren't going to, but since you asked so nicely, we will.
Thank you kindly. I like.
You say riding a pig. One's riding a pig, and the other one appears to be beating the pig with a stick. So that's a whole other thing going on there, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, is the first child looks kind of well-to-do, with the one behind being a little more ragged.
Neither of them are wearing shoes.
Why put a shoe on a foot that's still growing?
And look, he's using
he's got
for
patches,
a belt.
Yeah. No, sorry, he just had like a fancy hat.
I imagine
that's what confused me. Yeah.
Probably from that baker they found around the back of his house with his head caved in.
Yeah. I mean, the pig is clearly the getaway vehicle.
Look at the narrative we're building already with these miniatures. It's great. So,
it all makes perfect sense.
So one of the interesting things you were pointing out to us is that obviously we've got this 28mm selection of stuff. One of the other things that these guys do is 60mm, isn't it? I think so.
They do 60. They also do some 40s as well.
Wow.
And even up to 90s. So if you're looking for display pieces, you can do them. If you're looking to play a skirmishy type game, they do Napoleonic Wars and Crusades in 40. Yeah. So you could potentially play Napoleonic in 40, but they only have Frenchy, so you'd have to go elsewhere.
Okay.
Look, quick question. What terrain do they do?
Sorry.
I'm seeing 60mm buildings in terrain.
Again, it's stuff historic wise to match into the bits and pieces that they've got. So
got it.
You can have your the tractor factory. Or bits and pieces like that. So medieval pavilions and ruined walls and damaged sections. So it's mostly for diorama builders.
I was going to say that does seem to be the theme with this, that it's kind of like diorama-esque with all of these bits and pieces for display. But it's always a nice thing to kind of like go into and give a shot at that, because obviously a lot of us will do kind of like 15 and 28mm gaming, but it's nice to have kind of like an attempt at a different side of the hobby. So
I've seen some spectacular games being run at conventions in 60mm, which is sort of the toy soldier scale, where people have just played whatever happens to be, like a Wild West game like Legends of the Old West, but instead of playing with 28mm figures, you're playing with 60mm figures. And when people are walking past your table, being able to see a dozen big figures that you can spot from space without having to lean way over is a great way of going with it. As you can see, the detail on the larger figures is absolutely exquisite.
It's fabulous.
If you're interested in upscaling for whatever reason, you can definitely do that. It's worth a hook.
It's one of the nice things about painting in these larger scales is that you kind of teach yourself new techniques as well. Because I remember when I painted up that bust from Burrows and Badges, I got a lot of people saying, "Oh, this is cool," but if you think about it, you've painted this as if you were painting a 28mm miniature. You actually have a lot more room to do a lot more stuff with these. And so I think when you look to stuff like 60mm and 40mm and 60mm, you've got a whole wide range of stuff that you can go and look at when it comes to painting techniques that you could then bring back to 28mm and 32 and stuff as well, which is pretty cool. So yeah.
But definitely worth diving into if you're interested in seeing what else First Legion do, especially in the larger scales, because there's a whole wealth of stuff. And it may be that you just find something that piques your interest, that you would never paint a whole army, but you go, oh, I'd really just like a winged hussar as a display piece, or I'd like Napoleon, or I'd like Wellington, or whatever it happens to be. And you never know what may sort of kindle from those bits and pieces in the long run.
Yeah.
Or gift stuff, very much so.
Yeah, or if you're a gaming group that's planning to do an ambigulated gaming event now that they're coming back, this could be a good place to stop off for you.
But there we have it. That is our Indie of the Week. So firstlegionlimited.com or LTD. We will be back in a moment with all of the news.
Coming to you from the center of Northwestern Europe. Covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
Okay, folks, so we're back with the news, and we're kicking things off with a little bit of sci-fi from Mantic.
Oh, yes.
As they have been firing up their pre-orders for Deadzone 3rd edition.
I am severely tempted.
I might be.
You might already have a pre-order in.
It's Mantic, it's Deadzone. Jerry is put the sandwich together.
I looked at it, and there's a variety of ways you can lay your hands on the stuff for 3rd edition, including a veterans bundle, which is like the rulebook and the new counters you will need. And that was very reasonable. And then I looked at the send me everything, including your neoprene mat and shiny acrylic tokens, and I went, I'll just have that instead. Thanks. But it will be launched, I believe, 25th of August, or 25th of October, with a new 2-player starter set. The factions in this box will be Vermin and the GCPS. Co-prosperity sphere, GCPS. So not enforcers this time, but the regular grunts, along with all the dice tokens you need, the 3D scenery, and these new bits, because it's going to be set in around Magnetor, which for Dreadball players, they'll know the Magnetor circuit well. It's more inner sphere than outer sphere, so you're not on some dingy backwater planet. You're in a bit more of a lived-in high sci-fi place.
Yeah. It was really cool hearing the stuff from the video about it, because they were like, well, we're using the standard sort of terrain that we'd used previously for the Deadzone sets, which we know are very cool. And we had that awesome video where we built up a massive terrain things. But then in all these other little bits, not only did they help tell a bit more of a narrative and a story in your games, but as one of them was pointing out in the video, they're actually gameplay because you can hide behind them, and they give cover as like from like above and below and everything as well. Which is
things
really
like the awning. If you're on a floor above, you can aim straight down normally, but having an awning there all of a sudden means that you're not entirely certain what you're aiming at. I also like the fact there's cash machines in the future, because it's all about capitalism and the strange sushi bars and calamari places. It has a very Firefly-esque feel. Look, napkins.
Right, so no more secret, corporate bases where shitty things have been going on.
Oh no, still them. Lots of them, but this will just changes up a little bit how it plays. Up until now, it has been all sort of backwaters and finding vermin in mining worlds in the middle of nowhere, and they've decided to change that. There's also, apart from the battle zones, we have some new dwarves, which I know will excite little Ben, because they broke down the lists, as they have in the past anyway, into your main factions and then sub-factions. So whereas you're seeing things like starter sets for recon squads, but you may change up how the GCPS run. So you might want a recon squad, you might want something a bit more crowd suppression, shall we say, and they have people with big sort of riot shields and full-faced helms because you're going into a more bloody zone.
I'm kind of digging the monocycle.
It is really nice.
Yeah.
Did we first see one of those with the Rebs, was it? I think it was.
No, the Enforcer sitting there.
Oh, right. Okay.
Enforcer Scout.
Right. That was it. Yeah.
So the 2-player starter set will contain, like I say, the Vermin and the GCPS, but also these 2 big resin figures. So we've got a Vermin Stampy one, and then this lady in the middle standing on a vermin's body, as with
a badass double-barreled gun.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that gun is yet, but I will be finding out. But they'll be coming in the starter as sort of, I would imagine, exclusive for a while, or sometimes when they've done exclusive models like this, then they change up maybe the arm poses or something when they actually release it for beyond the box set. But there are 10 different I was going to say strike teams. There aren't. There are 10 different factions to pick from, and then within the factions, you have these various strike teams to lay in and play out your games.
I still like the Iron Man style aesthetic to the Enforcers. I think it looks so cool.
Their jet bikes are very cool as well.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is that I showed off the starter packs that you can buy from. Or pre-order at least anyway at the moment from Mantic. But this isn't everything, because they've also got booster packs for all of those, as Jerry was alluding to. So you've got ones that come with like heavy weapons and all sorts of different things in there too, which is quite
tunnelers
nice.
For the vermin, nightmares and terrors. And there'll be a couple of different boosters for each one as well. So depending on how you want to play, you can go in various directions, because as I was saying, there are a whole host of options when you start to build your lists. So
are the Brocas in there for the Forge Fathers?
They are, yeah.
Oh, God,
nice.
So the main reason they've gone for 3rd edition is because they've had escalation and infestation, which have sort of changed up how the games play. And they've had a sort of a certain amount of bloat in the lists. And this gives them a chance to go back and not only carve that back, so you're only having to bring 1 book to the table, but also they were very big on changing how keywords and abilities and that sort of thing work, because they had a point where they had multiple terms that were used for, say, fight was a stat, but also an action, and also heavy could be a weapon or could be a type of ability, and they just wanted to get rid of the duplication and repetition and make it more streamlined, so that people coming in can go, here's my book, and if I want to look up what fight is, it's 1 entry and it means 1 thing. It doesn't mean 3 different things depending on the terminology. They've also split the book. So the core rules will be an 88-page book with 16 scenarios, which is a big increase in scenarios. The original
was like 4. Yeah.
And 127-page force list book with the backstories, fluff, and list building, which is a very impressive. So that's what, 215 pages in total.
More than that.
I've got no, it's not 215. That's maths.
Okay.
The current Deadzone rulebook is 111 pages.
There you go.
Yeah. So
one of the
contained everything.
Yeah, one of the nice things I said about this, and this is one of the things that I think we'll talk about in a little bit more detail in a bit, is like you've got something like Kill Team, which is obviously going to come with that core book, and then it has the forces thing that you need, and then they're probably going to be doing individual ones for all the different forces later on down the line. With this, they specifically said in this interview, it was like, right, there's going to be the core book and this faction book, which contains everything you need.
Yeah.
You get both of those for 30 quid, and then you're kind of on your way. And the other thing they pointed out as well is that whilst they've done these new packs and stuff that we've seen, and we're showing off the part of the news story, all the existing stuff is still completely usable.
Oh, yeah.
You just have to know the new rules for a lot of the stuff, which is obviously included within that faction book. So while you're not seeing Marauders currently, they are on the way, there are going to be lots of new Marauder bits and pieces coming up later on down the line, which is cool. But you can use all your old stuff just to get you started, which is nice. So
the biggest change is the line of sight, which is a double-edged sword because it was very simple. It was super simple. Could you see any part of the model you were aiming at?
You can shoot it.
You can shoot it. If you could not see 100% of that model in its totality, including the base, then it got cover, which meant it was very simple to teach people, very simple to play, because there are no measuring things in Deadzone. Everything's played on cubes. So you're just going 1, 2 cubes. I'm going to move 1 cube. I'm going to shoot 3 cubes, whatever it happened to be. So you didn't have to do anything complicated or work out what was going on.
No widgets.
What some people were doing
widgets.
were they'd have a model almost entirely out of cover, except maybe their tail or the edge of their cloak would be tucked behind a wall beside them, which meant they were in cover. So they're actually changing to more Infinity style using volumes. So you can still have the nice models with the extravagant looking poses, or, a vermin tail sticking out the edge, but no longer can you shoot from your vermin tail or be shot just because your tail is sticking out the edge of a building.
So to be able to see the main body of the miniature, which I think is probably a better way to take it. I know there was a couple of people in the comments that were like, oh, this is adding too much complexity.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
It really isn't. And to be fair, I never had the problem where somebody was gamey and just tucked a very small part of a miniature behind a corner so they got the cover bonus. But I can imagine in tournaments and like they would. If we skip in past that, they've also redesigned how the faction lists are going to go. And this will be coming up on Easy Army as well. So the list builder that Mantic are partnered with should be accessible on the day of release. Touch wood. But whereas before you would have maybe a marionette in multiple sections in the book, depending on the weapons, they now just have the profile and then underneath the options and whether it's a troop or a specialist. So army building is a lot clearer and list building is a lot easier. Model-wise, there's some nice things coming.
That actually shows us some of the new plague miniatures there as well.
Yeah, there are. I mean, those are the plastic plague in the middle. That alpha,
that's one of the big new ones,
are all new. And this, I think it's a plague Tetron. Is also new, as is Little Swarm. Gutburster's not. I've got some of them. Murder Birds are finally coming for people who aren't me, who didn't back and get the Murder Birds.
There's the builder.
There's the army builder. So it should make life much easier when you get in there. I want to skip on because I know.
And are they doing a digital army builder then?
Yeah. So the digital army builder as well.
Okay, that's very cool.
They've been working with Easy Army for a couple of years now with Kings of War, so it's just a case of pulling the Warpath universe in there.
I get all the data points in.
Yeah. So apart from those models, which will be in the new set, they also mentioned a couple of other bits and pieces.
I think towards the end they showed off the plastic Marauder, didn't they? Yeah.
So there we go.
That's the one, yeah.
So plastic Marauders are coming next year. Finally, fans of the best type of fighter in the Warpath universe, allegedly discuss, will be able to get their hands on hard plastic versions. And also the plague, they're replacing the PVC with resin. So that will hopefully cause a lot of less issues for people when it comes to cleanup, especially with the way Mantic stuff's been going.
Here's the big question then. Is this superior to Kill Team?
Yes.
Glad
Glad
we
we
got
had this
a-
conversation.
no discuss.
No,
Well, it's an interesting one because it's something that definitely came up in the comments. Like a lot of people were talking about this on Facebook as well, especially under our post. And they were talking about, why would I buy this when I have Kill Team? And so many people were like, it's simpler, it's easy to play, it's got more options, it's a lot quicker as well, and it's not as restrictive. Because one of the things that's obviously come up with the new Kill Team, and I haven't played it myself, but I've obviously been reading a lot around it and all that kind of thing. And obviously you guys have looked at the book and stuff, is that it say, for example, you're going to try and build a Primaris list or something. Well, there's only a certain amount of things you can actually use, and there's not much sort of granularity within that. Whereas with something like Deadzone, if you've got a model, the chances are that can be used in your group.
it can.
So
Dr. Octopus stall.
Yep. So the Artificers are coming because they were everybody loved the one from Star Saga, and they went, we're going to do this. So we're going to have Dwarven Artificers, so cleverer types, not like your cheeky Brookars who are just there to lift ore out of the earth. They also come with stomping machinery, though.
Oh, me likey.
So Juggernaut with breastplates when you want slightly more armor.
very
And sometimes when you need to burn out a nest, Juggernaut with flamethrowers.
Oh, yes.
And drill. So I'm looking forward to the Artificers, which I think are coming next year. But yeah, and as far as the Kill Team / Deadzone thing goes, apart from it being a one-stop shop almost, where you get the rulebook and everything that is available or will be available for a long time.
Like expenses wise, it's
there.
very good.
Mechanically, I don't know how Kill Team works with heights and levels and stuff, but Deadzone is incredibly easy to build your list for, because you build it based on you've got a commander. Commander allows you to take unlimited numbers of troops. For every trip you take, you can have one specialist. For every 3 trips you take, you can have one support option. And then within that, you just go nuts. So that's your list building. They're all in the book. And then play-wise, it's up to you to develop the strike team that you want to use and the synergies that you want to use within it. So you can have a very fast, lightly armored enforcer squad, or you can take all of them in Peacekeeper armor and just stomp your way forward like turnip haters, taking all of the shots and then just blathering people up close and personal. So depending on your play style, you've got these options. And then it's just so fast to play across 3D terrain, because you're dealing with, well, you're playing a 2x2 as standard, but you can expand those from there. But playing on that grid, and you're just going, well, how far away is he? He's 4 cubes away. Well, your enforcers can run 2 and then jetpack up there. So they're very maneuverable. There's no complicated, I'm going to move this far and then I've got to go up 3 inches, which costs me half my move in speed or whatever. There's none of that nonsense. It's how quickly can I get my miniatures on the table and play a game? And the answer is incredibly quickly.
One of the things I'm noticing is, you see, for that core box, it looks like you're getting a good dose of that modular terrain in there.
Oh, yeah.
And it is completely rebuildable. So I would say on replayability, Deadzone probably has it hands down, just because you can completely refactor that terrain into new scenarios and new formats.
Yeah, you can definitely get stuck in there if you want to change up how it works, because they come with the little clicky tabs on them.
Yeah, but even with the fact you say there's 16 scenarios in here, I will guarantee you that terrain will do all 16 scenarios. With the terrain that came in the recent Kill Team box, some of it slots together to make bigger pieces of terrain, but it's not very modular. You're kind of locked into it just being, it's piles of Orc scrap and parts of Orc wall.
Even though they use their own, the modular terrain is 3-inch squares, so you can build your 3-inch cubes, which is perfect for Deadzone. You can use any terrain you want. If they're going to go across multiple squares / cubes on the table, then you just define where they are and what they're doing, what they're covering. So you're not restricted by anything. You're not restricted by miniature. Even if you got the book, you can play it with Imperial Guard. You can play it with Eldar. You can knock your socks off and go any which way you want. But then it's the flexibility and the simplicity of the rules without being shallow, I suppose is the best way of putting them. They're very easy to get into, but you can really go whole hog on it.
Easy to learn, hard to master kind of thing.
I think some people have found it very easy to master.
Fair enough.
A lot of people with a lot of plague zombies out there. we hate you the most. And it's a nice stepping stone because obviously they're doing this in October. They're currently running the Firefight beta, which would be the next step up game-wise. So you can start with a very small, compact 8 to 10 sort of models, maybe even less, for Deadzone. And then if you want to play the larger games, then Firefight is coming next year, and you can get in at sort of ground level and build from there. So it's a great stepping stone.
It's one of the things that I quite like about that, sort of like the moving between the different game things, because as I was saying with Kill Team, you've got to make very specific lists with people armed with very specific loadouts. And that doesn't necessarily then translate to what you would use as a squad in something like, Combat Patrol, or going even higher and deeper into for like 1 or 40,000 as it were. Whereas with something like with Deadzone, obviously those models perfectly translate into what they're going to do with Fireteam, and then maybe if they bring up big old Warpath later on down the line, that will also feed well into that as well. So
I think at the moment Warpath is probably going to stay as is, because Warpath's a very solid set of rules.
It just needs the stuff.
Kind of in the middle. But yeah, from what we're seeing here, it looks like obviously the Plastic Marauders are coming. Huzzah for that. Because I've got 2,000 points of Marauder somewhere, but they're the old ones. They'll still be useful. But they can use Deadzone to help filter things through into Firefight.
Like they did with Vanguard into Kings of War, basically.
And also some of the things we've seen for Overdrive, miniature-wise, so the Giants for Dreadball / Overdrive are also going to be available to use in...
Yeah, there'll be alternative miniatures for 2 of them. I think they've already announced so far.
The Tigrax with the Indie Rider has got an alternate arm with a weapon, and then I can't remember the
large robot.
But he's going to be a Phantom class for the Asterians, who are filth space elves, but they're the cleverest type of filth space elves because there's not many.
Send robots to do that.
Send robots. Why would we fight ourselves?
We have all these robots sitting in storage.
Yeah.
The other thing, one of the other things that someone brought up, I think it was on a different post, or maybe it was during the live stream, was someone like, "Oh, but 40k has got all this history and lore to it." Blah 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 blah. And I was like, "Yeah, but Mantic have essentially only been working on Warpath in that universe for a fraction of the time that Warhammer 40,000 has been around. And now one of the nice things they've been doing, especially with what we're seeing with this, is they're really branching out into the idea of building up that narrative. Because obviously with Kings of War, they were like, right, we're definitely going to just concentrate on Panathor and build up this world so that it's now a living, breathing entity in of itself. Now they're doing the same thing for Warpath, and they're doing this thing where it's like, right, we're not just going to deal on the fringes with weird forts and science labs and all that kind of thing. We're going to tell you the stories of the people that live within that inner sphere and that kind of thing as well. So it's definitely something that's growing and evolving. And importantly, it's also like emerging at the same time you're playing the game. So it's one of those things where, a little bit like with how they tell the stories of Kings of War in their campaigns and stuff, if you want to be in something that you could potentially have a hand in crafting where it goes next, this seems like a pretty awesome thing to do.
I think that the current plan is at least one campaign every year.
Cool.
And I don't know if it will be for both systems or if they're going to alternate. I don't know if they know themselves yet. But those campaigns will have an impact on the story, and they just keep going. So we've already seen it in Kings of War with several campaigns. And I imagine we'll do something similar when it comes time to sort of roll out Deadzone and Firefight and the larger sort of games, or they can be supplemental, because you can obviously play then small extractions in the elite sort of Deadzone forces that are going in to do something very specific. Essentially, your special forces go in, extract that person, or go in and assassinate that person, whatever it happens to be. But then at the same time, they can have the Firefight and the Warpath games as well, and tie those all together to push forward the narrative between themselves. And I want to say it's Winged Hussar, but it might not be publishing, who are doing a lot of the novelizations.
Did they help with the roleplay stuff as well? I can't remember. Or was that different?
No,
that was Red Scar.
Red Scar. I think Winged Hussar are doing the novelizations, and they've been progressively doing more and more with a sort of a guide from people like Matt at the studio, going, well, these are the sort of points that you can't change. Here are things you can develop within that, and then that also then sort of layers on more story and fluff for the Mantic universe. But I'm very excited for Deadzone. If nothing else, it means I get to use all those people I've painted up as enforcers, probably on camera as well.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think
a lot of people's shields.
I think we should give the new edition a run out and show people what it's like. That'd be very cool. Well, and I just want to. It's one of these things that I think it's very important to say. Just because like all these other games exist out there doesn't mean that you don't give like something new or something that's being revamped a chance.
Yeah.
So like if you're like, oh well, I didn't like Deadzone in first edition. It's changed a lot since the last time you saw it. Well, relatively in terms of like streamlining and that kind of thing.
Between first and third, there will be more of a change. If you're already a veteran second edition player, it's good. Yeah. But at the same time, definitely give it a go, because it's not just Mantic's version of, I don't know what the combat patrol or kill team, I don't know what scale they play at. But it's not just Mantic's version of them. It's not just here's a generic or agnostic version that you can play.
Yeah.
They play differently. You're not just rolling different dice in playing the same game in a different universe.
Yeah.
They are different styles of games. And that in itself, I mean, if you're sitting with multiple sci-fi forces, whether they're Infinity or 40k or whatever, the book is relatively cheap to pick up. I imagine in a month or so time, we'll probably see a cut down version of the lists and the rules available anyway for free, because they've always done the free rules on the website.
They've also they're going to do digital versions of the rule books and stuff as well.
Happy days. So you will in most respects be able to just grab whatever you've got in the house, play a game, and see what you think and see how it plays out. Because it is a different feel, and it's a lot of fun just not having to think too hard about things, because you can just go, I'm in this cube, I'm going to sit on top of it, and then I'm going to strafe you all.
It does feel as if it's going to be very easy to bring friends in, because say you're down at your gaming club now that they're finally starting to reopen and stuff, world's getting back to normal, and you're playing a game of this, and your mate walks past and goes, oh, that's curious. Oh, this faction sounds cool. Well, I've got the rules for them right here if you want to have a gander.
Yeah.
You know, you're not sort of like locked into a faction because you only own the book for that faction.
So, Deadzone third. Anybody who wants to play me a game, feel free. On up to Korean. I'll play anything with me.
He will.
I will play anything. Yeah. But moving away from the world of Deadzone and to the far, far distant past. Let's see, far, far away.
Very much so, yeah. So a Time Mass Games came out with a whole bunch of information over the last week or so about what they're doing with some of their games. We're going to be talking about Marvel in a little bit, teasers. But the first of these we're going to be looking at is their new stuff that they sort of announced and teased for Star Wars Legion. So the Shadow Collective is going to be making its way onto the tabletop. So if you wanted to run your Pike Syndicate, or perhaps you wanted to dive in and play around with the Death Watch, you're going to get the option to do that now with these new releases for the game. You're also going to see a fantastic, amazing character from the animated series, Maul, not Darth Maul. He's not Darth Maul anymore. Maul is going to be walking around with the Darksaber, kicking ass and taking names, as you can see there. Oh, so cool.
Did he get excommunicated?
Well, he got bisected.
There are two ways of looking at it. Either he is no longer a Darth because he got killed up and then give up on it, or he's the only correct Sith Lord left because he's the one who still tries to follow the rule of two, whereas clearly Palpatine was lying his backside.
Very much so.
Yeah.
This is stunning for anyone who is a massive fan of the Clone Wars animated series, because this builds on all of that kind of character and depth that they created through those shows and brings that to the tabletop to reinforce more of the Clone Wars period. Because up until this point, and it's been really fun, obviously, we've just seen a lot of the Republican, a lot of the Separatist stuff, but all of this was going on in the background at the same time. You know, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka are all dealing with the fallout of the war on Mandalore and all that kind of thing as well. So it'll be fascinating to see that kind of extrapolated and built on as this sort of continues to grow over the next year or so. And I'm really hoping we get to see a lot more of that stuff to do with Mandalore in the near future. I think that could be very, very cool. That'd be nice.
Yeah. I can't wait for this, especially because they were saying that this will be an additional faction or mercenaries for existing factions.
Yeah.
Also, I just really want to see an old Obi-Wan model.
Oh, God, yes.
That'd be fighting him at campfire. Spoilers, by the way. one of them does not survive into Star Wars.
But then that means we're moving into Rebels, and that means we get to see more Rebels awesomeness, which would be cool.
That is very true. Yeah.
But yeah, loads of really cool stuff here. I particularly like this fact that we're seeing a lot more kind of like alien troops, for want of a better phrase. So we're seeing things like the pikes coming through, which is really cool. And they'll be really fun to paint, I think. And it should bring forth a lot of interesting options when it comes to gameplay, because I don't imagine that Atomic Mass are going to sit on just these being the releases for next year. I imagine they're going to be working on a lot more in the future as well. But yeah.
One little thing
Sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
I was going to say one little thing they teased for the future is there will be Ewoks coming for the anniversary. So 2023, the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. We're going to get Ewoks.
Warren doesn't have to print any more of them.
Doesn't have to print any more.
What do you mean, Warren? It's me that does that. Oh God, so many.
He'll be able to use official rules rather than my rules, although my rules work great. Just say that.
Yeah. Although I did notice one thing in that paint tutorial video that I've not really seen done before. The painter actually has a completed miniature tabbed on to his painting handle.
Pretty cool.
Along with the one that he's working on, so he can keep them identical. That's clever.
That's Dallas for you, you know. He's not his first rodeo, I suppose.
Very true.
No.
He's done some great videos with us, actually. It's very good. Go and check those out. But moving on to more from Atomic Mass Games, obviously they do Star Wars League, but they also do Marvel Crisis Protocol, which is obviously their big flagship project. And so they're going to be bringing forth new X-Men and more for the Brotherhood of Mutants at the same time as well. So going to be 4 new X-Men introduced into the game. You're going to get Rogue and Gambit. So you've got your Cajun explosion, followed along by some really awesome stuff, including Colossus and also Magic as well. So you've got 3 relatively well-known additional X-Men, and then one that sits more on the fringes. Of course, there are many, many, many X-Men for you to pick from, but it's cool to see that we're getting at least these here that a lot of people will know from the animated show during the 90s and stuff, and of course the comic books too. I really like, again, the advert, the teaser they did for this, because it's just like a classic cartoon thing or like a toy thing from the 90s.
Please tell me they're doing the Blackbird.
Now, I think that's a Blackbird, but other people have said it's a Quinjet. So
no, that's definitely the Blackbird.
Yeah, I think that is the Blackbird.
So apparently there's a Quinjet coming as well. Somebody mentioned it during their live stream weekend.
But again, really dynamic models, really nice looking miniatures for the X-Men. As I say, expanding on what you've already got, so you can have your proper badass team of X-Men now going against the Brotherhood of Mutants on the tabletop. Really nice dynamic miniatures too. I really love the Gambit one, sort of like fanning the cards out and throwing them. I think it's really cool. And then Magic leaping through that portal with that sword at the ready to bring it down on people as well. It's just super cool.
Ever so slightly disappointed in Juggernaut because it's not the Vinnie Jones one.
It's not. However, as a little homage / nod to the Vinster, the tactic card that comes with him is, do you know who I am?
That's amazing. That is amazing.
And then everybody else can finish that in their head.
But yeah, as you can see, Juggernaut is massive comparably to all that, as he should be, compared to all the other characters on the tabletop, which is really awesome to see, carrying an entire traffic light stop there to hit people with.
That's optional. You don't have to have that.
Cool.
He comes with just a closed fist as well.
I kind of want to see Juggernaut having a punch up against the Hulk.
That would be neat. That would be cool.
Yeah, it's totally doable.
Oh yeah.
I would imagine that Juggernaut is very good and very adept at hitting people into terrain and using terrain to hit people, as tends to be the way with the Marvel Crisis Protocol. So that's really nice to see.
Well, weirdly, he's very good at hitting people into terrain. He wasn't good at terrain bashing at all, except his tactics card. Do you know who I am? Allows him to,
there you go.
allows him to launch the terrain around.
Perfect. Yeah. But yeah, so in addition to the miniatures themselves that we've seen here, we've also got a new terrain set, which is kind of like a Roxor Mall, I think this is called, isn't it? As some people may have seen from the Loki TV series as well. But you've got that to battle around in. There's also a sort of fallen sentinel in that terrain as well, which is pretty awesome. So it kind of mirrors what we're seeing in terms of the miniatures that we've got there. So you've got like Rogue, who looks like she's just blasted through the middle of a sentinel, ripped it to pieces. And then you've got Colossus, who's carrying Sentinel's arm above his head as well.
Excuse me, I think you forgot this.
Exactly. Yeah. I want to see someone.
one of their heads in.
Yeah. I want to see someone put a Wolverine in his hand as he was about to do the Speedball special. So that'd be cool. So yeah, that'd be nice. But yeah, really awesome stuff coming up from Marvel Crisis Protocol. I should point out as well, they had talked about doing some tweaks and changes to the game in the future as well. They have now a wealth of content when it comes to the game itself, but they may be tweaking and changing things later on down the line when it comes to some of their cards and stuff. So watch out for that and see what they're doing with it. I don't imagine it's going to be a massive change that's going to rock everything, but they've obviously learnt things over there, however many years they've been running it now. So
well, some of the models like MODOK there, Shuri are getting new / updated cards. I didn't know it at the time, but the Wakandan group were actually one of the first sets that they started working on before the game was even released.
Oh wow! Okay, so that would make sense because they were like the first wave, second wave,
3.5 years old, and there was stuff they did at the time they didn't realize how the meta was going to work, and it made people like Shuri ridiculous. So there's a.
I mean, she is pretty badass, but
oh yeah, but even more so, she would literally just go up to the Hulk and just ruffle stomp him, and pretty much anybody else on the tabletop. So that they've changed how some of their abilities work. You'll also notice the layout of the cards changed.
Yeah,
That's because they're going to be going multilingual. So this allows they can use the one sort of format and then have Italian, French, German,
more space.
Can then be laid out. So localizations are coming for people who maybe aren't
very nice
into Crisis Protocol, or translation can sometimes be ropey. Let's put it like that when they're changing things up. So that's what's coming. So hopefully we'll be able to just get a new deck of the original core set. Hulk has also been given a bit of an upgrade, as MODOK.
I think they were talking about Cap as well earlier in the video.
Cap as well, to make him more Cap. All the Cap can be. But yeah, it's
as you do.
It's exciting times ahead for the Marvel Crisis Protocol community, especially just seeing more X-Men is always good.
Yeah, I really want to see. Well, there's two characters I want to see. I want to see Bobby. I want to see Iceman. I think Iceman's amazing. I want to see him definitely sculpted as he's sliding along on an ice sheet. I think that would be brilliant. And then also simply because people can argue about her to the ends of the earth. I want to see Jubilee, who is either the weakest mutant in existence or the most powerful mutant in existence. So there we go.
I'll tell you who I'd like to see. I would like to see them do Madam Web and the Multiverse Spider-Man.
Well, that would be interesting. Yeah,
because then you could have the Iron Spider and just all of the different ones. I just have the one who's just Peter Parker.
I mean, they've got Spider-Gwen coming out. They've got Miles Morales. Not Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider, sorry. Yes. Ghost Spider, Miles Morales, and they've got those coming out. So it'd be interesting to see them do more stuff for that, especially because they tend to link things in alongside the MCU releases, which is pretty cool.
This is what I'm thinking. If they could get the Multiverse Spider-Man on the go for it coming out, that would be amazing.
Maybe someone out there will do alternative heads for Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, so that you can cut your head off your Spider-Man and put those on instead.
just the emo cap one.
Yeah, the emo version of him.
Most powerful being in creation.
Well, anyway, moving away from the wonderful world of everything owned by Disney.
Very true.
War Cradle Scenics have got a massive new building coming out.
Oh yes, yeah. So the Tillinghast Manor is one of their big new 35mm MDF sets that they're going to be working on, and you can pre-order right now for use in Mythos and of course any other spooky games that you might intend to use on the tabletop. This is another one of their big pre-colored kits, as you can see there, with the roof sections and the sort of chimney stacks as well. It comes with a multi-layered interior. So you've got lots of options in there for kind of like ground floor shenanigans and stuff on the top as well. They even created lots of little incidental pieces to go inside this too. So you've got things like a bookcase and a fireplace and like a makeup mirror and a chest of drawers and a piano and that kind of thing as well. I think what you could do with this to be really awesome is print off some interesting like carpet designs, put those on the floor. Very cool. And go and wallpaper, and then maybe go and get some stuff from Terrain Crate just to kind of populate this a little bit more, because obviously they did their Manor set recently, which would be pretty nice.
It's very nice.
Good matchup for
chairs.
We're gonna have to do a Through the Keyhole episode with Ben.
Yes.
What miniature would fight in a house like this?
And use a little kind of like keyhole camera to do the run through.
No, I have been playing around with some of these kits from War Cradle Scenics. I'm currently working through the Augusta set. So it's like a train station with some warehouses and some like ruined warehouses and stuff as well. They're actually really good kits to put together. Nice, simple designs that don't take an absolute monster amount of time to put together. And, you're not getting lost all over the place. The one thing I will say is if you pick up any of these kits and you're looking for the instructions, they are on the Warcradle website. That is where you're going to have to go to find them.
It's going to be interesting seeing how you tackle this one, because I've had a lot of people in the comments being like, oh my God, this looks like so much MDF. But, you're an expert at putting these kind of kits together now, Justin.
Hardly an expert when it took me a year to build one kit one time.
Well, that's true. But you have built, I don't know how many foreground kits in the past. So you are more adept than other people.
I have done all of the redwood terrain that they've brought out and sent to us before as well. So, I mean, it's one of those things. The folks from Warcradle Scenics, they've been learning the technology, learning how to do it, make it better, make the kits work better. And they are getting really, really good. So I hand held up, they are doing good work.
Yeah, in addition to the Tillinghast Manor itself, as you saw there, we also have a new expansion kit as well that's coming out alongside this, which is very nicely detailed, which comes with stuff that you can use to add to your manor grounds. So you have a groundskeeper's hut there, which is where you clearly need to go to find the individual who will tell you the secrets of the manor and tell you that you have the shinning.
Oh no, clearly if you're playing Mythos, that's where you find the first dead body, and then it's like, something's not right here. We better go and find a boss. And then you go into the manor and it all goes a bit wibbledy.
You also got a gazebo. Always fear the gazebo. You cannot run from it. You've got a nice set of tables and chairs there. You've got the bridge that you can put over a nice water feature. You have a water feature itself. And then you have the walls and everything there too, which is quite nice. Yeah. And a car, which you are definitely going to have to try and escape from the manor in at some point.
I mean, the car does look like it's got quite a bit of work in it there.
It is very detailed and multi-layered, I will say that. But a really awesome little set of terrain there for those people that want to dive into and play Mythos. I think I was particularly, I really liked the way the windows have been done with that kind of high Gothic style, which makes it incredibly creepy. Also, I actually quite like the burn marks up the side of it, because it makes it look like this house at some point was at the heart of a terrible fire or something, and that is why there's this horrible mystery that you have to go and solve. But very cool.
I think the only thing I would change, you see that dormer window up on top on the roof? Just I wish they had put a peak roof on that instead of just a flat roof.
Oh, well, you can add one yourself.
I probably could.
Yep.
Get chipping away. It'll be fine. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's HDF. It's easy enough to carve.
Yeah. Awesome terrain there from the folks at Warcradle.
Next up is one for Lloyd.
It is.
That'll teach him not to be here, won't it?
Yeah. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to send psychic thoughts to Lloyd so that he can be he can tell what I'm talking about. Okay, right, we're fine. So, A Viking in the Sun is a new expansion coming up for Lion Rampant, or at least attached to it anyway, which builds on the rules by Daniel Mersey from the original game. And this one comes from the University of Edinburgh Press alongside Gianluca Ragacagni. Oh my God, Racagni. Put that one in the edit and keep out the rest of them.
Oh no, they will see everything.
And also James Holloway as well. I'm sorry for butchering your name there, Gianluca. But this follows the adventures of one Harold Hardrada in his younger days when he headed down to the Mediterranean and joined the Varangian Guard. So within this book, you're going to find 3 mini campaigns that you can play through as Harold Hardrada as you take on his voyages throughout the Mediterranean and beyond as well, which is pretty awesome. You're going to be diving into battles in, I'm going to read these off because I'll forget them otherwise, the Upper Mesopotamia, Palestine, the Aegean Sea, southern Italy, and the Balkans. And in addition to that as well, which is pretty awesome, you're also going to get a whole bunch of new army lists as well. So you're going to have army lists for the Muslim powers, the Byzantines, Normans, the Lombards, and the Byzantine Italian principalities, which sounds fascinating. Didn't even know they existed, but very cool.
Lovely.
Interestingly, in addition to that as well, because you're going to get all those different army lists, and they're not just things that you're going to fight as Harold, you're also going to have rules for playing out the campaigns as those empires, which is pretty awesome. So if you wanted to follow the story, but from a different point of view, you can definitely do that as well, which is pretty nice. So it's a very in-depth book that they've put together for this sort of expansion to Lion Rampant.
Yeah.
See, I always wonder
what they did.
I always wonder what Hardrada was thinking whenever he first decided to just, leave the fjords behind and go, oh, we're going south. It's getting warmer. I like that. Let's keep going.
Lots of them went down there. The Varangian Guard were bodyguards for the Byzantine Emperor for a long, long time. And they've been trading in through the mid for decades, if not hundreds of years. So it was always a good place to go.
Good way to go and get some gold to bring back to your family.
Or why bother going back? It's warm here.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
I should also he got to be king. That's why he went back.
Yeah. The last true Viking king.
Yep.
But yeah, so in addition to the book, the folks over at North Star, you can pre-order this from a whole range of different places, by the way. But North Star Military Figures have also put together this sort of special limited edition miniature of Harold Hardrada. Now, this one is particularly interesting because this was, and I think just Jerry informed me of this, an unreleased miniature from back during the ancient Warhammer historical days that has found its way back onto the tabletop from Crusader.
I think it was due to come out with Shield Wall many months ago, but never did.
There you go.
Yeah, they'd already done a book for the Crusades. And unlike the Osprey books that they're based on, which are 80-odd pages, very thin sort of things, the books coming out of the University of Edinburgh Press are sort of 3 to 4 times the size.
Wow. Okay.
So that they are a great way of learning about the period as well, because you don't have to go and do a lot of outside research. So if it's a period you're interested in or something that sounds like it could be a lot of fun, it's very in-depth because they use the fact that they are wargamers as well as historians and teachers and academics to combine these so that they bring together all of it in one tome. So it's also one of the most well-researched sets of books you can lay your hands on for the periods as well. So it's nice to see that they didn't rest on their laurels and just do the Crusades, that they decided to go on a bit further and play with the Varangian Guard. So,
yeah, very nice. Cool. Sticking with historical stuff, but moving from miniatures games over to board games, Paolo Mori, who is a scion within the board game industry, has moved on to create a new version or a sort of like an adaptation of his game Blitzkrieg, which I know that you guys have played and very much enjoyed. So this is called Caesar, Seize Rome in 20 minutes from PSC Games and should be coming out towards the end of this year. In Caesar, you will take on the roles of the eponymous Julius Caesar or Pompey as you try and fight for control of Rome and its surrounding provinces in order to become emperor. So very similar to Blitzkrieg, and you can see it pictured here in the image above, the image right here, right in front of your faces. You have bags that contain a whole bunch of tokens. On your turn, you will draw a token and you will decide where to place it on those different circles on the map, and that will allow you to control different regions. Now, differently to Blitzkrieg, instead of those being put into one particular theatre, those tokens actually cross over those dividing lines that you see on the map. So you put strength into either 2 provinces rather than 1. And you'll see that they have like 2 numbers on either side of them, and they'll give you different values and things. Essentially, how it works is once each of those circles is filled, the person with the most power claims that region and obviously then gains glory towards their rise towards becoming emperor. But in addition to that as well, lots of different spaces have sort of bonus abilities and things that you can unlock as you're playing, as you can see on that sort of player card that you see at the front of the image there as well. So it's a bit like Blitzkrieg, which allowed you to play out World War II in 20 minutes, but a little bit more crunchy at the same time.
It's not as simple, I want to say, as Blitzkrieg was. There's a little more going on. Also, the fact it has a solo variant is exciting and new and different, which I don't think they had with Blitzkrieg or potentially even would be possible.
Yeah, so they've added in. So they've added in the solo mode, as you can see there, denoted by those little sort of tokens that you flip over, and they'll tell you exactly what the other player would do at that particular moment. But you also have sort of 3 modular add-ons to Caesar as well. So there's ones that allow you to like poison your opponents, which is typically Roman, I would imagine, and happens when anyone's trying to gain power, which is pretty cool. It's looking really cool and like a fun next step for Paolo Mori and this particular style of game mechanics, which obviously he really enjoyed putting together in Blitzkrieg and you guys enjoyed playing. And it's nice to see that kind of being tweaked and elevated with Caesar. And Paolo Mori is nothing if not an iterator. So I imagine this will happen in another game in the near future. So
I quite like the fact that it is an iteration, but it's not just a reskin.
A reskin, yeah.
And just change it to being, instead of Pacific, and it now just says Aegean or Mediterranean or land. They've actually gone in and gone, well, here's how we can change up how the game plays, and here's how we can add to the game as well. Iterated, not derivative, I think is the phrase.
Yeah.
I think the nice thing as well is that it's that 20 minutes thing. It's a strategy game that you can play between two players that's not going to last 2 hours. And by the 1 hour mark, what if you hate the other person, but you're playing it just through spite? It's over in 20 minutes. You can swap sides. Obviously, the randomness of the bags and everything like that when you pull things out is very interesting and important as well there. So some very cool stuff to dive into.
It's on Burnout as well.
Yes.
Sometimes you'll play a game and it takes so long to finish. It's just like, oh God,
you're like,
we're doing this for 2 hours. Can we just call it a draw and go home? Get a pint. It has happened.
Moving away from historic and into the world of Dungeons and Dragons. The first of 2 stories you have for us, Benjamin.
Indeedy. So the first one of these comes from Gale Force 9. So obviously they work with Wizards of the Coast, creating a whole range of bespoke and fantastic miniatures that you can see here that sit alongside their role-playing games and their books and their expansions that come out. The set that you're seeing here builds on the book For the Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which is the latest sort of adventure book that they've come out with, which kind of delves into the Fey world and the Fey Wild within D&D, the Forgotten Realms. And so each of these different packs of miniatures then coincides with some of the NPCs and stuff that you'll meet along the way. So, for example, the League of Malevolence is this selection of wonderful villains, including that guy in the center who looks like he's off the front of an 80s metal album. Very cool.
He looks very familiar. I think I've met him in a game.
Yes, I think he is quite a famous D&D villain. But these are villains that have joined together to sort of reach their sort of like combined goal of gaining power. I'm sure they will betray each other by the end of the story, as they tend to do.
Yep.
But they are then set alongside Valor's Call, which is this set as you see here. So these are the named NPCs and characters that you will meet when you go into this adventure, and they call on your heroes to join them in their quest. So you'll be helping them with all their kind of things that they're diving into and playing around with. In addition to that, there's a whole bunch of additional stuff to kind of build on that Feywild element to the games. So you have things like the Hourglass Coven there, which is a selection of 3 hags, which is pretty awesome. All of them with very different ways of approaching things. I quite like the backstory to this, in that it's like a group of 3 hags that came together to sort of pool their magical resources. But more often than not, 2 of them will scheme and sort of twist and think about different things to screw over the other sister, which I think is really awesome. So there's some nice story built in there, which is cool. And obviously you've got that kind of almost carnival feel to a lot of this, which builds into the Feywild quality of what we're seeing with this adventure, which is really nice.
They are delightfully horrifying.
They are exactly that. You also have Zibilna and Igvil. That's how we say it.
Very German, I think.
Yeah. So we have this master mage who is sort of like carved out a corner of the Feywild for himself. And then also we have the hag that you see there, which has kind of bonded itself with the mage in order to kind of like gain power and use it for her own means. But there is the coolest set yet to come. So the Harangon Brigands, which look amazing. They're rabbit folk.
I mean,
we can see that.
I have to wonder what god they annoyed to turn their civilization into rabbit people.
Hey, these ain't no silly rabbits. These are badass rabbits. These are Roskabelt now. These are badass rabbits. So these are the sort of like bandits of the Feywild that kind of like run around chasing down lost survivors and travelers and stealing all their goods off them, as you do if you're a brigand. But they've also included rules within the Wild Beyond the Witchlight that will allow you to play as these characters as well. So if you've ever wanted to play an anthropomorphic hare warrior, then you can definitely do that. Sign me up, I would say.
Are we shocked? No, we're not.
No.
They also have a couple of additional things for Dungeon Masters. Most of this stuff was Dungeon Masters anyway, but you're going to get a new DM screen, which has everything that you need for specifically playing out adventures in the Feywild and for this campaign itself, which is very nice and comes with the artwork from the front cover and from inside the book. But then you're also going to get, and you can see them sort of like shown here and on the inside of the DM screen, a whole bunch of full color maps as well. I think maps are integral to role-playing games because I love having things for people to look at and point at and think, oh, what if we go over here, and that kind of thing.
Well, you could go over there and go to the snail racing.
Exactly, yeah. So if you wanted to go to the Witchlight Carnival, as you see here, then here is this wonderful map that you get upon entering the place for you to go and explore it. So yeah, some really nice stuff from Gale Force 9. There's just a really nice sort of bunch of accessories that build on what you're already getting from the D&D adventure. I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy these if they are big fans of D&D. So
I do like the way they've named the maps.
Yes.
Hither and yon.
Yes, it is very, very fey.
Has a almost gaming-esque sort of Stardust feel.
It very much does, actually. Yeah, it's very
like
cool.
That.
Yeah,
but that is not the only.
No,
well, we'll say D&D
adjacent.
Adjacent, yeah.
So, Tracy and Laura Hickman, who a lot of people will know as the authors, the creators of the Dragonlance universe, are going to be bringing to the tabletop their first big new fantasy world since Dragonlance. So, Sky Raiders of Abarax is going to be the new world that they're creating. It's going to be coming to Kickstarter very, very soon. It's going to be 5th edition compatible. So obviously you're going to be able to play as you can see here, things like Tabaxi, gnomes, halflings, dragonborn, all that kind of thing. So it'll be very D&D sort of like adjacent in many ways, as we were saying before, which is very cool. But it will have the storytelling and everything the Hickmans have managed to put into the worlds of, for example, Dragonlance. It seems interesting. I assume we're going to get massive, big skyships, as you see in the art there. We don't necessarily know too much more information about this, other than that they're going to be doing something, and they've called it the Living Tome System. Now, since the Hickmans are storytellers, I'm kind of seeing this as going to be sort of like a living, breathing world that they're going to be adding to as things go along, which should be quite interesting. Maybe they're going to have kind of some kind of like online digital living rulebook as well, perhaps as well. Well, we shall see. But it sounds interesting. And for those people who like the writing and the worlds of the Hickmans, this could be very cool.
Maybe they're taking a leaf out of the old school Living Greyhawk, which Wizards obviously dumped like a bad smell years ago. I'm not sure why, but they split the world up, and everybody was playing in the same world at the same time. So continental Europe was one place within Greyhawk, and the UK and Ireland was another.
That's cool.
North America was one, and then Australasia. And it meant if you were playing at conventions or whatever, you would bring your same character, and maybe you've been playing with other friends or other conventions, so you weren't always getting a pre-gen. Your character came and moved and went and evolved, and they would write scenarios specifically for certain big events that were happening. And that seems very narrative driven, which would be right up.
It would be very much like what they like doing. Yeah.
So obviously there must have been some reason why they stopped doing it. Wizards of the Coast, it may just be the time and effort. But
I think that probably was it.
If this is going to be the sole focus of a new world, then potentially that would be a good way to go. And again, flying ships, Stardust. They're obviously out there collecting lightning and balls.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at that artwork, and I'm seeing one thing that caught my eye, which is if you're on that skyship floating along, going to your next adventure, and all of a sudden you're in the skyship getting attacked by a dragon.
Oh no, they're friendly. They're very much like the dolphins of the air. Dragons. They will
That's how
dive and flip around in front of your skyship.
So if you fall off the side, one will maybe help you get back up and on.
Yeah, and it's incredibly unlucky to shoot an arrow at one, just like dolphins. Although Poseidon doesn't need to lend a hand, the dragon will do that themselves.
I'm kind of getting it self-explanatory why you do not shoot at dragons.
I should also point out that for those people that were maybe keeping up with the drama that was surrounding the Hickmans and Dragonlance and Wizards of the Coast, that has all apparently been sorted out. And there is going to be a new Dragonlance book, I think they're saying next year, which would be interesting.
Oh, cool.
And if that means a new book is coming out, which I think this was the case anyway, that should potentially mean that we see the Dragonlance source book that everybody has been asking for. We shall wait and see, I suppose.
One way to find out.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. So we have one final bit of news.
Yes, we do.
We're sticking with fantasy.
We are. So we're sticking with fantasy, and we're heading off to the Mortal Realms because Games Workshop have added together a whole bunch of new Orruk releases for the Orruk war clans in Age of Sigmar. So we have a bunch of named characters. So we have Gobsprak, the Mouth of Mork, as you see there on the back of that terrifying vulture creature, which I think is pretty cool. And I quite like the whole look of the miniature in its entirety, really. But as well as being able to be made as the name shim that you see there, you can also change it so that it's just commanded by a traditional normal boss, if you prefer. You've also got the Swamp Boss Scumdrek, as you see there, which is another named character on the back of another strange and twisted creature that has dragged itself out of the swamp. This can also be created as a set that just allows you to play a normal standard Orruk general, if you prefer, as well, which is pretty
very
cool.
similar to a Serengeti swamp donkey.
The hell is that?
Yeah,
Let's not ask. We also have the Marsh Crawler Sluggoth, which I think is awesome.
I'm digging this one. It's kind of like Dobie on a bad day.
Yes. The thing that I quite like about this is it kind of tells a little bit of a story and a narrative with it, because you can imagine the Howder is the only thing you see kind of like bobbing along the water, sort of moving through the swamps. And then as your sort of free guild captains run forward to try and strike at these little goblins on the back of it, the whole massive sort of beast at itself that you see underneath is then revealed and starts attacking everybody on the bank and stuff, which I think is pretty cool, kind of built on the narrative. But yes, as you say, Dobby, when you've taken all his socks.
I think key when attacking this is to go straight for the beast.
Yes.
Because if you can get him to rear up,
oh yeah,
none of those goblins.
All the goblins will fall off the back.
I don't know. They do have like spiky
elephant
claws to dig in, so they might be fit to hold on.
Yeah, true. You've also got a new set of the Gut Rippers. So if you wanted to expand on your Orruk war clans from the initial Dominion set and the new starter sets, then you can do that as well. Comes with all the different sort of hand weapon options in there, which is nice. You get, I think it's 2 of the different variants of musicians you can play around with as well. And you've also got the banner bearer and the champion at the same time too. So if you like your Gut Rippers, you're sorted. You also have a new big set of terrain as well. So this is just one of, I think it's 3 or 4 different pieces. So these are all part of the Dawnbringer Crusade terrain set. So this kind of builds into the narrative that the forces of order are now marching out into the realms and not just trying to defeat their enemies, but set up permanent places to live, places of civilization within the mortal realms as well. So they're trying to I guess gentrify Gur.
Let us know how that works out.
Yeah.
And also, in some added news, the Warhammer Age of Sigmar app is now available in beta form. It is entirely free. Everything is free, bar a couple of things that are kind of locked behind faction-specific keywords and stuff for the moment for you to dive in and start making your armies. However, as I've worked out over the first 2 days of using this, it doesn't open on my phone. I've downloaded it, used it once, and now it refuses to open. So still some teething issues when it comes to that piece of digital content. Yes, it's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'd just like to point out before we leave these people alone, that is a Zinch Greater Demon's Hand up there.
Oh me, oh my.
So the story behind that.
No wonder he's magic-y.
The story behind that, is that he's so powerful a mage that he was able to stop that from returning to the ethereal demon plane, as it were. And so he's now bound it to his staff, as you see there, and that's why it gives him his powers. So
this is my souvenir.
Like a cursed monkey's claw.
Exactly. Exactly.
Excellent
I'm sure it'll be fine.
How embarrassing must it be for that demon to go back into the ether and just turn up and go, yeah, sorry lads, I had a bad day.
To change her the ways, it'll grow back. It'll be fine.
True. Yeah.
There we have it. That's your roundup for news for another week, folks. Yes. That's fairly comprehensive. So we're going to take a break for Ben to go and dip his tongue into ice water before we come back and look at some 3D printing and Kickstarters. Okay, folks. So this week we are going to be looking at Lord of the Print, which is Michael Flatley's delving into the world of fantasy 3D printing. Based on that laugh, I'm going to assume that is exactly what it is.
What is every miniature just like this?
Post Riverdance days, what has he come up with?
Michael Flatley has been very, very busy because the Lord of the Print is filled with all sorts of amazing monsters, dinosaurs, heroes, villains, and pretty much everything else that you could think of in between.
See, look, Flatley classic Riverdance post.
Exactly. It's as if it was and there's the fairy.
They're all doing it.
Yeah.
People mocked me.
Even the Tinder loss.
Yeah, you got the man to stay in it.
Yeah. So this is, as is often the case when we come to these, us looking at their My Mini Factory page to begin with, because there is an extortionately large amount of different things on this. One of the things to note with a lot of this is that obviously they've done a selection of more standard 28mm human-sized miniatures for you to use in your games, which is obviously cool. But the main sort of thrust of what we were very, very much taken by with this was the addition of all of those massive monsters and stuff. And we have picked out a few to have a look at, as you can see here. So
yes.
This was one of the ones that I picked out fairly early from in their sort of like selection, because I've always really liked the idea of tree men and sort of like a forest come to life. And so I really like the way that they've done these, because they've given them that little bit more of that monstrous quality to them.
I'm getting vibes of Stranger Things.
It is a little bit sort of Demogorgon, weirdly enough. Yeah, very strange. Which isn't actually a Demogorgon, but I think we talked about that last week anyway. But this is, I just love how like twisted and broken and gnarled they look. Cool. And it seems like it would be something fantastic to drop into like a force of nature force in Kings of War, for example. So yeah, really awesome.
Yeah, it's a tree herder. I like the fact that it doesn't have a conventional face.
Exactly, yes. Because why would it need one?
Except to go harumph a couple of hobbits.
Yeah, and then it's forgot to do a little pruning, so it's grown a third arm.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, it's just it kind of it gives off that almost like creepy fantasy vibe that sometimes you want from your games, where you don't want it to be like a classically high fantasy sort of experience in the tabletop, and so you see things like that which kind of add to the awesomeness of the kind of the setting you're creating. Yeah. This was another one that was just amazing. I got to say, I like their dragons a lot. But yeah.
And also, it's worth noting that these are dioramas, and they've done this with a few things on the page where you can get the individual dragon, or you can get dioramas, and it's not dragons. There's a necromancer fighting something as well. Where you've got the option to have them as a display piece or to have them as the actual sort of in-game character.
See, I kind of want to do this a little bit Yu-Gi-Oh! Do the blue eyes white dragon and the red eyes black dragon. Paint it up that way could look very cool.
For those of us that aren't weebs.
Oi!
No idea what he's talking about. It looks like the Caverns of Time, mind you, for Warcraft players, with the weird angled buildings.
I do like it because
stamping over.
Because it kind of gives you this impression of like a almost celestial style dragon that is facing down like some dark demonic necromancer or sorcerer who's managed to twist and break one of the other drakes into their service, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, or they just wanted to do a riff on Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla.
I mean, that too, yeah.
There is a big Godzilla figure that we're not going to look at on the page.
You'll have to go hunt down that.
Find that for yourself. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, they're absolutely stunning work on those.
Their dragons are particularly cute. But because I'm me, I haven't gone for any big creatures. Instead, I decided to go for one of the characters. So this is the aforementioned Necromancer. Necromancer against Vampire, I think it is. So you've got this, I'm going to say gentleman here, in very ornate armor, coming down the hill right at you.
Very World of Warcraft.
Yeah. Or Gary Oldman Dracula.
Yeah.
Not obviously Bumhead Dracula.
No.
Earlier Dracula. For the Bumhead, for the Dark Times. But it's just so much dynamism in the sculpt, the big flowing cloak, the hair. It's a beautiful looking character piece.
Yeah.
The diorama, he's coming screaming down a much taller hill at something.
I wonder if it's just the parts of the STL you get, or if they do it pre-supported, because you see that cloak he has.
It is pre-supported.
Oh, right. Sorry, my microphone was in my way. I didn't see it. Because there are some components like that are huge and flowing that they take a bit of skill just to lay out on the bed properly. So pretty supportive. Thank you kindly.
John says you're wrong. John says they're really easy and they just don't listen to anything you say. And it's simple.
No, because John's a god of 3D printing.
Yes.
No, it's because John is printing simple shapes and not trying to do 6-inch long banners in resin.
The shade. The shade.
Very harsh. Well, he'll be here on Sunday, so we'll ask him. But this one I picked out. There's a few Celestials, and most of them are standing on the ground with their wings up, like angels often are, where there's a seraphim with multiple wings. No crazy eyeball wheel thing, but this one really struck me because of how it looks and how it's sculpted and supported. I absolutely love it. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful work.
Wow. I love all the detail on the feathers. It's just stunning. It's amazing work.
Looks like somebody sprayed that with metallic.
They have.
Yeah. And they've had a little bit of a not perfect thing happening on. See one of the horns there? Something came out a little wrong. Maybe they were running low on resin and retopped up.
Possibly. Maybe it's a feature.
It's nice to see some examples of the finished sculpt as well. But
but this looks to be ones that people have just printed out and sent the pictures in for.
That's one. Yeah.
So it's nice to see that from folks because it's nice. It's all well and good seeing a 3D render or seeing something done by someone who knows the exact precise settings.
Oh my God!
Wow, owl feather wings.
Yep. Well, that's really easy to do.
Wow.
I imagine that's just striped contrast paint. It's not.
You just use an airbrush for that, right? Yeah.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
A tin of feather paint.
Tin of feather paint, on you go, son.
If you want, I'll sell you a tin of tartan.
He's turned that into some sort of terrible, evil, demonic thing with giant eyeballs.
He has. Fallen angel.
That's stunning, though.
Yeah.
That's
gorgeous.
Nice. Away from there.
I like
more traditional fantasy, shall we say.
The thing I really like about these, and I used to talk about it quite a lot with miniatures, especially a lot of the stuff that came out of Mythos, is the idea that they really play around with the detail in musculature to create dynamism. So even though the miniature is relatively static, well, obviously it is a miniature, but you get the sense of the twist of the model, and it's about to bring that weapon round, kind of thing. Like it looks angry and ferocious, even though in essence it's standing there. It's not got its like club raised over its head or anything, which is really cool.
Yeah, but it goes right down to that texture they've put down on the skin to show that.
Yeah. And the shifting belly, how it's not like completely straight down. Yeah. It looks like there is weight moving in the sculpt, which is really nice to see.
Very cool.
Just the toes curling around the bit of broken decking or board or whatever it's on at the bottom. So it's not just flat-footed.
So cool.
It's on the piece.
Yeah, clearly that someone has been transporting that on a ship and it has got out and just went, no, you're not selling me to a gladiatorial pit in the deep south.
Yeah, maybe.
I'd like to think he's the captain.
Dragons are always cool.
Very Dark Souls. Very nice. Loads of detail. It's a shame there's not additional detail in the actual wing membrane, but otherwise I quite like that.
This may be one of his earlier ones.
I do like the way he's done the finning all the way down the tail.
That is nice. Because normally that would just be like a ridge of spikes and they wouldn't do the stuff along the tail, would they then? But that's really good. I like the scale detail in particular. I think that'll come out really nicely with wash and very like heavy highlights to just like along the full length of the scales, just to bring them up from the darker tones underneath. I think that'd be really cool to paint.
How long before archaeologists discovered that dragons were actually feathered like dinosaurs? I was thinking of feathered dragons.
I have seen someone do a feathered dragon before somewhere, I think.
This was one of my favorite ones. Talking of feathered things, dinosaurs were feathered. But yeah, I really like this kind of like T-Rex apex predator thing. It's just fantastic. I am always won over by massive dinosaurs, and I'm so glad that they do it without the rider as well.
But this is only one of a host of dinosaurs that are available in a 100,000 BC style range, so you can have your Triceratops and all sorts.
Yeah.
A little more fantastical with the unusual sort of spiky ridges and scales.
And the layers of teeth and that kind of thing. But
if I was going to use this in a game, the Drowned Earth would be perfect.
Just
do some house rules for a giant T-Rex dino coming after you.
Yeah, a rampaging apex predator hunting you down. That would be cool. Yeah.
Do like giant hunting, but with giant dinos.
That would be, oh my God, that needs to happen.
But
yeah, I picked this one. I really like the Sleeping Dragon. Just like has had enough running around doing stuff for the day. I am going to sleep. And it's got a saddle on it, which is quite cool.
It's the weird... I'm not sure how you would put it. My God, that's a long wingspan. Surely that would fold up. It would be more comfortable if you were folded up. Anyway.
Maybe he's just stretching.
It's the architecture around it that's sort of curling around with these odd, shall we say, big eyes.
Almost like things. Ancestor things.
Some kind of terracotta masks or sculptures or something, maybe.
Yeah. It's like a guardian of a shrine, which I think is really nice. Yeah. Because not all dragons need to be evil. So
yeah, well, I mean, this one's clearly domesticated. He's got a saddle on.
They don't need to be evil, but they are.
This I thought was cute. I thought this was just such a cute thing when I saw it. Twins from an egg. Twins in a single dragon egg.
Or just one having a bath.
Maybe. I like the goo effect that this person has done on it.
That's quite nice, yeah. It's the kind of thing you might see done for like Easter. I think that would be cool.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that one's not going to survive.
Why?
Well, the whole point of a yolk is that the animal inside the egg eats the yolk to nourish it and sustain it and help it build up. Yeah. The fact that egg is still so full of yolk means that somebody's found that and went, lunch. I'm having this.
So the story's now sad.
It's a delicacy in some places.
Yeah, so some kind
dragon
of
eggs.
horrible orc has came along and went, what's this? Food rock.
You say horrible orc, I say
enterprising.
Elf delicacy. It's only the highborn get to eat the choicest. It's like
the unborn dragon younglings.
Yeah. It's like the swallow chocolates.
Yeah. Do they have to like wear a blindfold to eat it?
Oh, no, you just put your head under a little napkin so that people can't see you munching the bones. I want to disturb everybody else at the table.
I really like these because they kind of cross that line between fantasy and sci-fi. Because obviously it's got the fantasy thing in there because they're hunting dragons, but there's no reason that dragons can't be in a sci-fi world. But I just love the idea that these could be like constructs that have been crafted by like artificers or left behind by maybe an advanced civilization that then sort of fell into disrepair and ruin, and then has been refound by adventurers later on down the line. And kind of like maybe you meet some of them in your journeys and they're like either entirely hostile to you or maybe they want to try and make friends with you and all that kind of thing as well. But yeah,
so would you paint them up like all verdigreed and stuff?
I think that would be amazing. Or like with like plant life growing out from some of the bits and pieces on his arm.
Oh yeah.
Or you could just spray him silver and set him after Wolverine.
Yes, you could also do that.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
Somebody's caught up with me. Well done here with that one. Good thinking. And then because I love I had to have a Hound of Tinderlust. It's all about the hounds.
They are very cool.
They are. Anything that comes out of dimensions, eats people, and then disappears again is always good.
And again, an interesting one that could fit into multiple genres of game. Like obviously we talked about like fantasy, but also could be something pulpy, as we say, or sci-fi as well.
Straight into the Cthulhu. Set them on everyone.
If you wanted to homebrew some Stranger Things rules, and play a group of kids with this thing chasing them down.
Yep, that would be terrifying.
Through the local neighborhood. Great horror piece.
You would just do it as a race game. Just see who gets to escape from the hound. Last one eaten wins. I'm not saying that they're going to all survive. I'm going to say none of them are surviving, but there's a whole host in here above and beyond what we've looked at, from various Oni to Jormungandr, either
storm
eating
giants.
or attacking the storm giants. And somewhere down here we'll see things like, there we go, interesting take on the succubi, without having the bat wings, just having like a skeletal wing structure as well.
One thing
fabulous.
one thing that I think of these would be really good for, just to sort of like close out, is obviously Rain in Hell was that game that came out from Adam Loper. I think that would be very cool to see done with some of these miniatures. Because imagine maybe those as like celestial guardians that are sent down into hell to fight the demons, or maybe you have a lot of the demons from this collection used to kind of like bulk up your forces alongside some like bloodletters and stuff from normal Warhammer 40,000 and things. I think that could be very awesome and create like an almost Darksiders style approach to Rain in Hell, which would be nice. So
make fantastic marionettes and phantoms for Astrians for Deadzone.
They are so cool. It's probably a good idea that John isn't on this, because he would have been ordering these.
Oh no, trust me, I've had a peek at his hobby time for this week. You will be surprised.
Ooh.
Teasing a little bit.
There we are, Lord of the Print, also available on Patreon.
Yep. So you can either go and buy the STLs as it stands already from them, or you can go and get a head start and pick up stuff a month or two in advance, and go and pick up some of their miniatures, including those astronomically good dragons as you see there. Oh my God, it's so gorgeous.
Look at him. Look how happy he is rising from Ryla.
Always happy to have a rise.
Yep.
But anyway, so Lord of the Print, make sure to go and check those guys out over on my Mini Factory or Patreon and have fun 3D printing away on those through the dark months of autumn and winter.
It's the way to do it. Just set everything printing over the winter, and then you can prime it in the spring and paint it in the summer.
You don't need to turn your central heating on, because all the 3D printers you'll have running will keep you warm. That's good. So
yeah, and all of the fumes from the resin, you won't care what's happening.
Exactly.
It's just such a buzz. It's amazing.
Did you win one of our prizes? Find out on our prize claim center over at OnTableTop.com. Here we list all our previous prizes and those who have won. If you see your username, fill out the form to claim your prize. All prizes must be claimed within 30 days.
So, moving off 3D printing and having a look at some... Are you still laughing at me? Having a look at some of the Kickstarters that have been interesting us this week. We had a look at He-Man recently from Archon, who were only doing it for people in Europe. Now for people aren't in Europe, cool mini or not.
In the negative zone, we have...
There is another.
Yeah, so the Masters of the Universe, the board game, Clash for Eternia. What a long title that is the new board game from the folks at Sigmar. So the cool stuff behind this particular game is that whilst the Archon game was very much focused on the idea of you exploring and telling select stories and narrative within Eternia and stuff using the He-Man properties and the heroes and villains from that, this is very much more of a sort of like skirmish clash on the tabletop. What you do is that it's a one versus many or all versus the game style cooperative affair, where the players will take on either the role of Skeletor and some of his villainous minions, or He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, striking to take down Skeletor and send him back to another dimension. That's a different cartoon show.
I don't know if Mattel required anybody making a board game of He-Man to do the most vomit-inducing videos to go with them. Why can none of them focus for more than a fraction of a second before they immediately have to spin the camera around again?
Because that's
I'm not watching
dynamism.
anymore. It's
because you need to feel the speed.
Quite a lot there, but you know.
So as
you need to feel the speed of the gameplay.
Yeah. So this is a 1 to 5 player game. Can also be played by 14 and up, although I'm sure you could bring in younger players. But as I was saying, because it's a Sigmar game, it is packed full of plastic miniatures for all the different heroes and also the evil warriors as well. So not only do you get miniatures for He-Man and Teela and Man at Arms, but you also get loads of stuff for all the kind of weird and crazy villains that were created for the Masters of the Universe as well. So if you're a massive fan and you love your nostalgia, this is probably going to tick some boxes for you, I would imagine. Just to kind of like, go on, just
you get the king.
You do. You can get King Randor as well, which is pretty awesome. Just to, we'll come back to Castle Grayskull later, but to give you an idea of the gameplay itself, as I was saying, you have the two sides. Either one is run by the game itself or by another person. and then the game plays out as a proper little skirmishing battle game on the tabletop, where you'll have almost like, if anyone remembers Conan and the Batman game from Monolith, where you had the almost river that you laid out in front of you. You have a kind of board that controls where all the initiative cards go, and you'll flip through those, and you'll activate on your turns using power to activate abilities and defeat your foes. It's all going to be scenario based, so it's not just a clash to see who kills the other person and wipes them off the board. It'll actually have, I think they said they've got I think it was around 10, maybe a few more scenarios within the core rulebook when it finally comes out, which will allow you to dive in and start playing the game and play through very specific scenarios like, we need to defend Grayskull. That happens every week, He-Man. Or go and help Mossman before he gets destroyed by Skeletor's evil minions and that kind of thing.
Creature's gone missing. Let's go find him.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not just going to be an all out-and-out clout fest, which is pretty cool. As I say, you've got that cooperative mode in there as well. So if you don't want to be facing off against one individual, you can have it so that you just play against the game itself, which I think is pretty nice. And there's a whole section of the rulebook dedicated to how that works and how units move and all that kind of thing. So they've definitely put in the time and effort to try and make this a game that has multiple facets to it. As Jerry was saying, this is only available. Well, this is just not available to Europe. So if you live over here, unfortunately, you're not in luck unless you have some lovely American friends.
Hang on. We're in the UK.
Yeah, I think they count us.
Yeah.
But anyway,
the key is continental Europe and not economic area Europe.
Yeah. But in addition to that, obviously, there are many, many stretch goals and all sorts of different things they've worked into this. So the core box itself comes absolutely laden with miniatures, as you can see there, for all the different heroes. I have a soft spot for Trapjaw. I just think he's such a weird guy. He's great. I don't know.
For me, I always like many faces because he has many faces.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's self-explanatory when it's got to be self-explanatory when it's written on the toy box. So yeah, but as well as doing all the components that you see here, they've actually got some additional bits and pieces as add-ons for people that want them, or also you can buy it as a separate pledge option instead, which comes with all the main rule and everything as well. So you can actually get a entirely plastic Castle Grayskull, as you see here. So it's basically like having the toy. And they also have got some sort of raised sections as well. So, when you lay out the terrain and stuff, as you see here, you can evolve that and turn it up into, you see the actual massive Castle Grayskull and all of the associated sort of like hills and raised areas as well. So it kind of creates things in a little bit more of like a 2.5D space, which I think is good.
Yeah, I think they've missed a trick here. They could have made Castle Grayskull a dice tower.
Get your Dremel out and start going for it, I say. But the trapdoor does lower, which is pretty cool. So for no reason, but it lowers.
It's because it makes it more toyetic.
That's true. Yeah. You got to make the Castle Grayskull talk. Yep. Yeah. That's but yeah. It looks pretty interesting. The rules are available for you to go and check out if you want to dive in and look at it in more detail.
Bonus.
There's also I think it's like a 10-15 minute video looking over the rules and trying to teach you how to play. I must say, I watched the video. Admittedly, I was doing it quite half-heartedly, but I watched the video, and by the end of it, I was like, okay. And I did have to then go and look at the rule book to try and learn a little bit more about the sort of minutiae of it. But there is like a lot of depth, I think, to the way the power is used and that kind of thing, and the strategies involved with that. So it's not a game that's kind of like a little bit of a throwaway. Well, we hope anyway. But looks pretty cool, and a good option for those out there that want to dive in. There you go. Look. They want to dive in and play some fun stuff in the Master of the Universe and Eternia in the US, of course, or around the world. But yeah, there you go.
Funky stuff. Yeah. So 2 weeks left on that.
Yep. So there's about 14 days left on that from when you're seeing this. So go and check it out. See what you think. It'd be very cool to hear what you folks who are very much tugged towards things by nostalgia think of this. So yeah. Do you like it? Do you like the art? Jerry doesn't. But do you like the art?
Yeah, the art looks, in my opinion,
it does look a bit weird.
Done by a teenager who really likes copying stuff out of annuals that they used to have. There's just something slightly off about nearly every picture, like a slight foreshortening of some of the arms, or maybe their hands are a bit too long. Man-at-Arm's face, I can't decide if his nose is too small or his chin is too big, but there's something weird with the way they've drawn him in that side-on picture.
Oh, dear.
Just everything is just slightly... what's going on there? I don't know. Maybe Mattel went, look, you can't. You've got to make every picture just slightly wrong for copyright reasons. Who knows? Anyway.
But yes, so that's one for you to go and check out. But we also have a much smaller project. So this is from the Guild Ball Community Project. And so many folks will know, I think was it last year or the year before that, Steamforged kind of ended their support of Guild Ball. Well, the Guild Ball Community Project stepped in. Well, there you go. See, formed in 2020. And as volunteers started to work to kind of keep the game going. And they've been sort of routinely updating it and holding tournaments and all different sorts of things. And it kind of shows that even though a game might not be supported by the developer, as we've always said, the community can come in and save it from being lost to the mists of time. Well, there were plenty of minor guilds that didn't get their time in the sun, as it were. And so that's where the Guild Ball Community Project stepped in, and they've worked together with artists and 3D sculptors to create the Lamplighters team for use in your fantasy football games, one of which might be Guild Ball. So as part of this, they were offering both STL digital files and also physical rewards, but all of their physical rewards have sold out as of now on the Kickstarter. But you are still able to obviously go and get the infinitely available STL files to use to print off your own version of the Lamplighters. I was particularly taken by this because obviously I like the idea that they've really thought about like the look and feel and the aesthetic of Guild Ball and tried to make the miniatures fit that whilst being slightly different in some ways as well. So you've still got a lot of those kind of heroic proportions in there and stuff, and a little bit larger than life, which I think is really nice as well. And I like that all the characters have got names that are linked to what they do. So you've got like Wick, as we saw earlier, which was really cool. But as well as doing the miniatures for the team, they've also done some sort of side bits and pieces as well. So you have lots of these different miniatures that you see here that they've been working on behind the scenes for the community and stuff, which is really nice. They've also worked to create all the tokens as well. So when you dive in and you pick up this team, albeit in digital form, you'll be able to use it on the tabletop with everything that you would normally associate with a team from Guild Ball created by the likes of Steamforged, which I think is really nice. And they've done really well. They've managed to fund their project. They've unlocked loads of extra pieces, as you can see here. And it all seems very awesome. It's very cool to see a team come back to life from a game that has somewhat left the focus of many people's vision, as it were.
Yeah, it shows there's the thirst in the community as well to continue not just playing the game, but developing and expanding the game as well.
Yeah.
I'm assuming some sort of Brewers-esque type people crushing grapes.
But yeah, I like
the Avengers Guild.
If the initial STL render, the initial render is anything to go by, I think they look great. I really like the sort of quirky artwork they've done for it as well. It kind of reminds me almost like of Pratchett-esque stuff, which I really like. That sort of slightly comedic side to things, which I think is always nice to see.
I'm very curious to see what the rules are like, because whenever it's a company doing it, there's a very clear vision of what they want to do rules-wise. But now that it's a fan project, it's very, very, open as to what they could do for the characters.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine it's worth going to check them out on things like social media and stuff. Yeah. If I manage to grab some links and things, I'll put them down in the show notes, so that if you are someone who was like, I thought Guild Ball was dead, then you can go and check out all this stuff and see what you think of it. So
yeah, nice,
stunning stuff. And there are 22 days left.
22 days. Yeah.
Already funded. They had a very low goal, so hopefully a bit more funding will help them keep the Guild Ball fantasy football rolling. But that wraps us up for another week. We will return once again on Friday. But if you fancy joining us on Sunday morning for the XLBS, you can come over to OnTableTop.com, join our cult of games, and you can get a 30-day free trial if you're not already a member, and see what we get up to on a Sunday. It's generally more of the waffling, less of the page opening in between. But until then, we'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong.
Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.